It is 6:30 and I call this meeting to order. We stand and do the pledge. All right, Candy, can we have roll call, please?
Mayor Bachman,
Present.
Trustee Bunninger, Trustee Johnson,
Here.
Trustee Knutson, Trustee Meck,
Here.
Trustee Smith, Trustee Thompson.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum and continue. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion, please?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Do I have a second?
I say.
Any discussion?
I have a proposed change to make.
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion that we move the mayor's report from the last item, or I should say item number 11, and move it up to unfinished business somewhere before the water project priorities. And I ask for that because I think the work that you're doing for grants is so germane to talking about the water project priorities.
I would suggest we do it after the water project priorities because then the grants can be pointed. Whatever we decide is our priorities, then we can look at grants.
And I agree with that as long as it's right after.
Sure.
And not at the end. I just didn't want it at the end of the night because we know how we all burn out. Thank you.
Yes, we can
Second.
do that, for sure. All right, do I have a second on the proposed amendment?
Second.
All right. All in favor of moving the mayor's report to number 8?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, all in favor of the agenda as amended?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
All right, nays? Okay. Next on the agenda is announcements. And welcome, everyone. We are pleased to have you in attendance this evening. We welcome your comments, questions, and suggestions. To address the board, please raise your hand and wait to be called on. Then come to the podium and state your name and the street on which you live. Make sure the microphone is on. And speak directly into it so that everyone in the room and on the YouTube recording can hear what you have to say. It will help the board to hear and understand your comments if they are clear, concise, and respectful. Please present factual information and keep your statements relevant to the agenda item being discussed. During the public comment period, however, you may address the board on any subject. Until you are asked to speak, please be respectful of those around you and those who have the floor. Who would like to address the board on an item that is not on the agenda?
I actually have an announcement
Oh,
that I'd like
I
to
am
make.
so sorry, Paige. I just completely buzzed over that one.
It's all right.
All right.
I'm figuring this out.
Go, Paige.
So I would like to make an announcement, and primarily I was out on Rio Grande where the water break was, and I want to thank Dennis Rich and James Sorensen. Dennis was a huge help to the ORC who was there at the time. He was able to show them around the water system and the PRVs, pressure reducing valves, and he was able to get James Sorensen to go into Dependable to get some of the plumbing parts that they needed to fix one of the pressure reducing valves. So I just wanted to thank them for that. And then I wanted to thank Corinne and Cindy for calling all the folks who were either out of water or had not much water that day. Thank you.
Thank you, Paige. All right. Any other announcements? Okay, now we'll move on. All right, Mr. Keenan.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to recognize and thank Travis Sloberg for the amazing work that he did for this town. And I think that, you know, we in the recent, not too many months, we've lost some really good people on the staff. You've heard me talk about the chief of police. Neil was a fantastic chief of police. And now we've lost Travis. So I think there's got to be a reason why. People don't need to be calling the head of public works at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning just to have a chat. And, you know, Travis did go out of his way to try to respond to every single person that reached out to him. So I think that we should send him a box of chocolates. And, you know, on that note with losing Neil, I think that we should be looking a bit internally to our current police department for a new police chief. I don't, if one of them wants the job, let them have a chance with it. Because it takes a while. There's a small town, a suspicious town because a lot of the marijuana that goes on in this valley. Let's face it, Delta County would blow away in the next windstorm. Thank God we don't have wind if you took marijuana out of the equation. It is the economic driver of Delta County. So on that note, it takes a while to get for people to trust a police officer. And I think internally you have police officers that could step up and do a fantastic job as police chief. They know this town and the people know them. So that's something I think you should consider. I don't know if any of them have applied, but I don't see any reason why we need to be doing a nationwide search for a police chief. We have one of the best police departments in the United States already. Some of these people on the police department could definitely take over being the police chief, in my humble opinion. So that's all I've got to say, and it's nice to see everyone, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? Okay, moving on then. Next item on the agenda is staff reports. Ms. Ferguson.
So, and I've provided the written report as usual in the packet, a little shorter than usual. My time has been very, very otherwise occupied over the last couple of weeks, and so I wasn't able to update that as much as I tend to like to. Wanted to echo Trustee Smith. I've been incredibly pleased and thankful for the effort and knowledge that Dennis has provided from his time on Public Works, and just that internal knowledge again. Another fine example of someone who knows a lot in his head, and now we need to work at getting that on paper. And training up other people with the information that he has, because he won't always work for the town of Paonia. Also want to let the board know that SSG has been boots on the ground 7 days a week, working on our plants, primarily the Lamborn Mesa 2 million and our wastewater treatment plant. I have requested that they provide an update, a written update information on what they're finding and what's going on at the plants, what they're working on, so that we can get that to the board and continue to make decisions. I know that from my conversations, there's a lot of work that they are doing and a lot of repairs that are being made. So there's money being diverted to those projects. And we'll be bringing that information in a documented form as it becomes available and I'm able to do that. So and I'm open to any questions.
Okay, question from the board? Yes. Yeah.
So I wonder if we could have a date certain to get the information from SSG.
Oh, I'll
If we
have
could-
written information by the next meeting.
Okay, so you'll include the entire report in the packet?
That would be my assumption, yes.
Because if the reason I say this is I learned a lot on Sunday looking at a hole
Yes.
and seeing what a water line looks like, et cetera. And what SSG is doing is of paramount importance. And I would like to make a motion that anything they've already submitted to you in written form also be provided to trustees and public, in addition to what they may be creating from here forward while they are working for the town. Thank you.
Okay.
That was a motion. That means I got to do something about it, right?
Yeah, we need to write it, and then we need a second.
Second.
Discussion?
Period of time are we talking?
All right, go.
SSG has been working for us for a while. How long are we going back for?
People can, all right, yeah, Carrie. Thank you.
I was just wondering how long a period of time do you want all of this document for? From the beginning of SSG, how long have they been working for us?
Well, I began communication with them shortly after I received Travis's notice.
Okay, so
And-
just on this.
Right,
particular
and so
period.
I would request clarification. When you're talking about documentation, we're talking about information specific to the plants and things that they provide, not every email, if we email and things like that, just,
I would think a cogent report of what they found,
Yes.
what they're having to fix,
Okay.
what they're having to create.
thank you.
And I think it would be helpful if we could see, because they're charging 10% on top of equipment that they're buying,
Mhm.
and if there's any way to avoid having them buy it and have the town buy it, but if you could tell us what's been spent to date too,
I
for
can-
equipment which is over and above what we have agreed to spend for their contract. Thank you.
And we can do that. And to date, any orders that have had to be, I'm sorry, I'll let you finish the motion, and then we'll keep having this conversation.
All right, further questions or discussion? Yes, Dave.
I am concerned about getting an estimate of how much they would cost us for 2 months. And given the number of hours they're spending, I think we need to see how close we are tracking to that estimate. Because my guess is the original estimate, if I read it right, was for a couple days a week, and now I'm hearing 7 days a week. And so that's a huge difference in consulting costs, and I think we really need to keep a handle on that.
Other discussion or questions from the board? All right, anything from the public? Yes. Okay. All in favor of getting a report on everything that has happened with SSG? Oh, thank you. A motion that we ask all current reports and further reports from SSG be provided to the board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. Any other questions for the town administrator? Yes, Tammy.
Just a couple in the updates on 3B. You say the public surplus training is complete and the surplus items are being inputted into the town's account. Is that like an online surplus account?
Yes. So we're currently putting all of the information into the account, and then there's a scheduled call mid-February with our representative at Public Surplus to help those items then go live on the site.
Okay, and then the next one, National Meter Company, they're conducting a study. Is this study costing us anything? And is Public Works now estimating all remote read meters?
So the study does not cost us anything. They're evaluating with AT&T the strength of the tower and the locations that we have meters to determine whether or not, what it will take and what it will cost the town to eventually transfer to the office remote read meters, so we don't have to go out and read them manually any longer or do the drive around, where you can pull live time readings. And we are estimating right now, one, we would have been estimating because of temperatures, but two, we are also estimating because with our server transfer that had to occur, the old outdated system that they were using, the Badger Read Center, is no longer, we can't use that anymore. It's not supported, and we knew that was happening. So we're in the queue to transfer to their new system, but that hasn't happened yet.
Yes, Ms. Beck.
And then 5B, the Delta County School District would like to know if the board has any thoughts or ideas on a joint endeavor use for, or other ideas for the old Votech building near 4th Street and Grand. And is that something we want to look at getting on a future agenda? I mean, obviously it's not urgent, but do you have any more information on that? And would it be possible to maybe invite Mr. Clay or somebody to a meeting, a
So-
future meeting?
That's exactly what the intention was. I had a conversation with Superintendent Gibson, and she had said that it's an empty building right now that's not being utilized, and their district is trying to decide what they want to do with it. Whether or not they want to try to find a way that that if the town had an interest or desire in the building, if there was a joint activity that the school district and town could participate in, if there wasn't anything foreseeable that we could do, then they're also considering selling the building. But they just thought that they would come to the town first and have that conversation at the town level, give you an opportunity to think about it a little bit, see if you had some ideas and brainstorm, and then they have requested that we would place it on an agenda in a not too distant future date so that they could come and have that conversation with the board.
Is that something the board collectively is?
I've written it down. I was just wondering, do we have a timeline on that, when it would be best to discuss this?
That would be at the discretion of the board if they felt this was a conversation, a topic they wanted to discuss with the school district and how quickly they wanted to do that.
You guys want to do this relatively quickly? I mean, we could do it sometime in February, sometime in early March, whatever.
Could I just ask a question?
Yeah.
What I would like to know is if there is a way to find out, is there asbestos in that building? Is there anything we have to worry about if we were to take control of it?
And I don't have that information.
Okay, I think that would be really helpful to know
Mhm.
if we would have to do any remediation before it was transferred.
Of course.
Thank you.
So it sounds like the board is agreeable to do this, say, early March? Okay,
Madam Mayor,
yes.
Would it benefit the effort if we asked for ideas from the public as we move into the discussion, just to kind of get that ball rolling? Is that
Yes, that's a great idea. As a matter of fact, I am writing my article for the shopper tomorrow. I can put that in my article for the shopper. All right, any other questions from the board? Yes, yeah.
Item number 2, that's in regards to the intergovernmental agreement with the City of Delta, with the building inspector. I think it's very important that we finalize this agreement with Delta as soon as we can. And I know, you're not holding it up or anything. It's going to be a back and forth, but I think we just need to do what we can to get this thing pushed through. And I also had a comment that Tammy mentioned on the other one, which really has been taken care of now.
Oh,
so
okay.
We're good.
Okay, anything else from the board? Yes.
Thank you. I just have a couple more questions for Trustee Administrator Ferguson. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Could you please upload the SSG work order and agreement to MuniDocs? It is not there, and you had mentioned last meeting that you would. And given the citizen who spoke about the chief of police, I'm just kind of curious about the process, where we are in the process, if you have any updates for the job search.
Yes, I received some information just this afternoon from GPS. Chris Lowe is the individual we're working with, and reviewed that information, and we'll have that sent out to the board in email to get any feedback before he finalizes that and starts making the brochure for advertisement.
Thank you. And I have one last question, and it is, how is the status of getting our platform for our new attorney to join us remotely?
We anticipate to have the changes made to our system that need to be done before the next meeting. So we'll have it for our next meeting.
Thank you. Do we need to do a test ahead of time?
Oh, I plan on
A
it.
dummy, with all of us? Do we need to try something like that?
I'll need to have a few people,
Okay.
yes. And so once we get an install date and get it installed, I may reach out and see if I can pull a few people in so we can try it out.
Sure, sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Last call from the board. All right, seeing none, anything from the public on the town administrator's report? Yes, Mr. Bruner?
Thank you. Bill Brunner from Paonia. We don't have information in the a report in the meeting anymore about the overflow of the tank at the water treatment plant. I thought that was to be a regular feature.
I have information through December, and that's as far as the information is that I've received, but I have not had an opportunity to pull it out of the data and put it onto the spreadsheet yet.
So we don't have a current report for what's happening flow-wise from the springs to the Lamborn plant?
I do not have, the reports are in the data's in the spreadsheets, but I have not looked at those, no.
Huh. Okay, well, this concerns me, I have to say. We're approaching February, which is the month when the springs bottom out, and this is the time when we had the water emergency a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think it would be incumbent to keep track of what's going on with that tank and look at the numbers, the trend, and try to make a projection of where we're going to bottom out this year. If you know, it can't be exact, but it's got to be interesting. And it's my understanding that the clock plant is not available for use on a moment's notice?
That is the information that I have received, yes.
Right, and which is kind of a new information.
Yes, it is.
For the public, yes, and it's very alarming. So I would urge the board to be sure that this water plant gets brought online by any means necessary and run continuously as a proof, because we've been told over and over and over that this plant is functioning, and it is not. It's my understanding there's a directive from the state of Colorado that it not be used because the water in it is basically stagnant. It has to be drained and disinfected before it can be put into the pipes. If I'm wrong, please correct me.
Yes, that's not accurate.
All right, tell me the truth.
So first I would say that you are correct. So the information that's been provided to me recently by SSG is that that some of the information that's been provided for many, many years they went back and read news reports and looked at the data from all aspects that they could through the DCI in different areas, and stated that there had been ongoing statements from previous administration and staff members that the plants could operate with 20 hours a week, and that information is not accurate, that it would take much more than that. What I've been told is that the staffing level that we had running the plant was woefully underserved, which we already knew from JDS and others, and the information that they gave me was no, the clock plant is not in a situation that it could be brought online within 30 minutes to an hour, that there's some major things that need to happen in there. As far as CDPHE goes, there was one comment made that the potential that because of how long it's been since it was distributed into the system that the water may need to be drained, but we would test the water before we had to do that. We continue to have conversations. The data that you're requesting as far as flows and numbers are being monitored by SSG that are working at the plants 7 days a week, and that is data that they will be providing. Feet on the ground at first was getting in there and getting some things taken care of that needed to be taken care of so that we keep water. Secondary to that then is them starting to provide the written reports and things so I can provide it to the board.
Okay, what I get out of that is that I have heard repeated assurances that that plant is online, and I don't believe that that's accurate.
It is, you are correct, it is not online.
Right, okay, and it would be, we don't know if I asked the board to direct that plant be put into service and run continuously, because if we need it, we need it. And it's going to be just another, sorry, it didn't happen story if we do need it. And I would ask that the data of the plant water production, how much was being spilled, be provided. I really would like to know. It should be in public. I thought the board directed that be part of the presentation. The SSG contract, their scope involves the water plants pretty much, or what is their contract? What's the scope of their contract?
It's water and wastewater. Water and wastewater.
Right, okay. But in terms of there was a big fiasco with a broken pipe in front of my mother-in-law's house that took a week to fix. And there
No.
didn't seem to be any clear supervision available for the people trying to fix that. And the SSG guy showed up, and I was kind of surprised because I was sort of under the impression that that wasn't part of their contract.
Can you clarify what you mean that there seems to have been no supervision?
I mean, there are people without training or qualification trying to fix things and not knowing where things are, not really understanding how the system works and how to fix it. You know, when you got a water line that breaks and you fix it and it's still broken, you have to ask the question if there's adequate supervision going on.
So the situation with the broken line, we received notification that there was a minor water leak on Wednesday. The leak was scheduled and repaired on Friday. So it was a 2-day. Thursday, the repairs were being done at the plant, behind the plant. We were told that there was a leak. It was excavated and a tap saddle was put on the line to fix the repair. It was the exact same kind of break, leak, and the same kind of mechanism that was used further down the line a few years ago when there was an issue on that line on Rio Grande. The repair was made, the tap saddle was attached appropriately and failed, which happened probably Saturday night and rose to ground Sunday morning. I came out there Sunday morning as well, and ultimately the reason that SSG came down was to confirm how much water was coming up and where it was at, and then to go and assist checking the pressure reducing valves in the vaults to confirm if the break was a failure based on installation or if there was an issue with a valve in a vault. What they found, which is within his duties, is
Okay.
the PRVs. And they did find where a PRV had failed, and they believe that there was a surge in pressure that caused the tap saddle to break, which is why it had to be re-excavated. Thank you, Kindle Excavating, and was repaired on Sunday.
I'm going to interrupt for just 1 second here. The gentleman in the back of the room, sir, you will either need to put on a mask or leave the room. Yes. I'm sorry, what? No, not right now. You may leave the room, or you may be escorted. Mr. Bruner has the floor. We are going to let Mr. Bruner finish with his question. You may wait outside the door, and when Mr. Bruner is finished, then you may come up. But you may wait outside the door. Thank you. Mr. Bruner, go ahead.
Okay, not to argue the point, but it's my understanding from communication with people fixing the leak that these saddles break very, very rarely. And I don't think it's an accurate assessment to attribute cause to why that broke. I don't think that anyone in this room is qualified to do that. But the final question I have is, the JD Hydro report on the state of the water system, the big report, what's the status of that? Do we expect that to come back anytime in the future? Or?
Yes, the direction from the board was to have a 3-month report after collecting the 6-month data, and they're at the 3-month period right now, so they're preparing that report to be provided to the board.
Okay, and so we might expect it
I would say we should expect it in February.
in February. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Bo?
No,
Okay.
it's passed. The time has passed.
Okay. All right. I did offer the gentleman a chance to speak. Would you go out and tell him he can come in and address the board, please?
Madam Mayor, if I may, I think the time has passed for visitors and guests. It seems to be more of a disruption than a benefit to what we're trying to achieve.
All right, then let's go ahead and, any other questions? Yes, Ms. Watson.
Suzanne Watson. So I'm a little concerned about the topic of smart metering, the town's water meters. You know, I know maybe there are different views on smart meters, but it's an area of contention, and there are a lot of people who actually don't believe in it. I'm concerned about the potential for hacking our system when you have something done remotely like that. But in our current comprehensive plan, toward the end of it, it actually says EMF awareness. They'd like the town to develop some EMF awareness. And smart metering is kind of contrary to that. So I really do think this needs to be a community discussion. I don't know when the decision was made that we were going in this direction. You know, if this is a staff decision or if this was a board level discussion. But some of the reasons why I think it's important to actually have, even if it's just driving by, we don't even have boots on the ground anymore, but certainly we're not a big town, and driving the streets and maybe coming up with a checklist for that employee to kind of keep their eye out for other public works issues. You know, a monthly drive on the streets I don't think is such a big thing to ask, and so many things could be noticed. I feel uncomfortable thinking that everything would be controlled here from the town. And then aside from that, it's touted as a way to keep an eye on all the leaks after the meter. But I think the bigger issue is the leaks before the meter. You know, the leaks that we're not aware of that we see in people's metering. I don't see the leaks after a meter as being such a big issue. And I think if the town were really concerned with leaks after the meter, that leak under the railroad track to that, hey, are we having a side discussion here? Or are you listening to me?
Excuse me, Ms. Watson, you will be respectful.
No, I'm asking for some respect over here.
So, and what I would,
To be frank, I was
Thank
trying
you.
to get an understanding of if this was in the boundary of, frankly, with the previous comment too, under the town administrator's report, which is what
Okay.
the agenda item is.
Okay, what I'm saying is she says that we're talking about smart metering, and I'm asking, it
and
seems
that's
to be
inaccurate.
rolling along without a board discussion.
no, and that would be inaccurate. And so what I would say is that this is an opportunity for a community to ask a question about what I've written. And this is a duplicate information that's carried forward from the previous meeting with the duplicate response from Ms. Watson, that they're investigating to see if we could even have this option. But this is nothing that's come before the board for a decision, nor has any plan been made to move toward this item. This is actually a conversation and a topic that's been brought up by the board and the Public Works Committee, when there was a Public Works Committee, many, many times, about having the ability to read people's meter at the touch of a button, especially when you can pinpoint when there is a surge in water use in a property, at a home, and things like that. And so there's no decision has been made. It would come before the board before
what I'm
one
saying is I would like it to come before the board, because I come to many, many meetings and I've never heard it talked about. I was assuming it had to do something with master meters. There was never a discussion that it would be put on individual water meters. So that aside, in the manager's report in January, it said that SGM, on January 11th, there was going to be a meeting with SGM, and I'm kind of wondering where that was. At the last meeting, I confused it with JDS Hydro, but it was actually stated that there was going to be a presentation. And I'd like to know, we've been waiting for this presentation, and I'm kind of wondering when that's going to start happening. I'd like to start learning a little bit more about the water system and what they found. I'm wanting to talk also about the lower treatment plant. You know, since we're paying an ORC to operate the water system, we're kind of paying to have that running. And I'm kind of thinking that we're kind of losing out when we don't have that lower system running and we're actually paying for someone to operate the entire system. As far as the school building, I'm curious, does the real estate come with it, or is it just the building?
It'll be a conversation that the trustees would have to have with the school district.
Okay, I mean, I don't know, are they just offering a building? I mean, is this something that you have information on?
The school district called me and said we would like to talk with the town about if there was a possibility for a joint project at that location. That's the information that I have.
Okay, because I do agree having maybe even a community work session with that where it's a little bit less formal and there's a really good opportunity for citizens to bat their ideas around. It would be very, very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, anything else from the public? All right, seeing none, let's move on to disbursements. Can I get a motion, please?
I move that we approve payment of a, I need, okay. I move that we approve payment of accounts payable in the amount of $27,733.34. The Norris retirement payment of $1,680. A transfer to payroll from Summit and transfer to Summit and payroll and payment of payroll taxes $18,708.83 for payroll, $8,040.94 for payroll taxes. And that's all.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion from the board? Yes, Tim.
Are we talking disbursements yet? Okay, all right. I'm curious about the top line item on the disbursements on the checks. The Archive Social Inc., I believe that's a service that grabs images of social media. And I'm curious is that correct? Yeah. So is that being utilized? Is that actually being utilized by the town? And if so, could you give some examples of how? Because I'm just wondering, this is a lot of money when we're looking at a lot of expenses. I'm just curious if this is paying off to have this service.
That's a good question, actually, and was a question I was considering broaching to the board. So the Archive Social only archives posts and comments that are made on the Town of Paonia page. So the reason that we have that is so that we have a record of posts and comments that are made, and it archives the original post, the comment. It also archives and saves every edit. If somebody deletes a comment, it will still show on the archive, and it saves that record, which is important should you have a Cora request for anything that is on that's placed on the town's Facebook page. It did go up almost $600 this year to have that. I have never had a Cora for anything that was on social media, and our Facebook page is basically only used when I post on it. No one ever posts there or comes there and starts a conversation or asks a question. So it would be a board decision. Basically, we have two options. We can keep Archive Social and keep using the Facebook page. We could shut down the Town of Paonia Facebook page or leave the Facebook page but no longer post or comment on it so that I'm not required to archive it. So we can have that conversation another time, but that's what it is and what it does.
Yeah, I think that would be good to have that that conversation at some point in the future, especially if it hasn't been needed. And then I have a question about one more disbursement. The One Delta County, can you just remind us what we get with One Delta County?
The purpose for One Delta County was to replace Delta County Economic Development and its support for all the communities in Delta County when it comes to economic development and businesses within the county.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Smith.
I'd like to ask a follow-up question to the $600 disbursement, are we already committed to pay this bill and we have it for the next year?
If we cancel it, we're not contracted to keep the full year because we paid for the full year. If we were to cancel use of the service, it would be refunded.
Okay, I would.
It would be prorated, yes.
Thank you. I'd appreciate it if we would put that high on the list of things to discuss, because that's $3,000 we could maybe use elsewhere. And I have an additional question about, in disbursements, could you describe the wind water expenses? There's 4 of them. And was that associated, and which water leak it was associated with? Thank you.
Madam Mayor? While they're looking that up, I just wanted to point out that I don't want people to forget that every time we get an electric bill that's shown in these disbursements, that we're saving about $900 a month because of the streetlights.
Okay, so the first wind water for $712.20 is for parts that were purchased for the water leak that happened at the clock plant. That's the one that caused the loss of water and loss in water pressure Wednesday. The wind water bill for $656.08 is for repairs on, it says Minnesota Avenue. That one doesn't have a date. January 20th. And the invoice for $465.46 is parts for for SSG and repairs that they're making at the 2 million water plant. And the final $1,341.16 are some additional couplings, Hymax couplings that we ordered so that we have them on stock and on hand if we need them.
Thank you. And I have one last thing, and I hate to put her on the spot, but could you introduce Susan to us?
Yes, sorry,
Thank
I
you.
can do that. So everyone, this is Susan Cassidy. She just started working here as our PD clerk. She took Miss Katzer's position. Welcome addition, and lives just outside of town, but in Paonia. So Susan's around.
Well, welcome.
Yeah. All right, anything else on disbursements from the board? Yeah. Yeah.
Under the, well, there's 3 items for the Shums Coda Associates for the building inspector reviews and services. One's for $180, $530, and $840. Are these all for the same project or for different projects?
They're different projects, but they're for the same billing period. Since they moved from Colorado Code Consulting to Shums Coda breaks up their billing and differentiates it. That's why we get 3 separate invoices for the same billing period. I can see. So we get plan review services. 1 invoice is for plan review services. 1's for inspection services. And the other one I'm going to say is consulting services. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else from the board? All right, seeing none, anything from the public? Yes, Ms. Kent.
Chris Kendall, Minnesota Creek Road. I have a couple questions on the wind water stuff, because you said it was used on the breaks that happened last Wednesday.
One of the invoices is for parts that were needed for the repair that happened up on near the 1 million tank. Yes.
And you already have that bill?
Yes.
Okay. I was just curious. And I have to apologize. I wasn't here 2 weeks ago, and I had collected the route tickets, and of course they charged $750 again for mobilization fees, and that really bothers me. And then the one that I'd like to talk about for sure is they charged you guys 7 hours trucking on 1226 for the emergency that leak near the Flying Fork and on Main. number one, that leak was running for 4 days before it was called in. Number two, I keep looking at this hole as I go by. And I'm like, it's not as big as my car, okay? It's not as big as my truck. My husband's dump truck is 16 feet long, 7 feet wide, and about 5 foot deep. That's bigger than that hole down there was. And they have 7 hours trucking. It upsets me that I'm the one that's pissed off about this, because I don't see anybody else questioning these things. You know, I see more questioning, and I'm so thankful that you guys are, but I'd still like to bring it to your point. And also, I don't like the description, water leak located by Flying Fork Restaurant. When I do my descriptions, I put, like, we worked on 3rd and Rio Grande this weekend. I put 3rd, Rio Grande, front of 319, water leak, found broken brass saddle, broken curb stop, plus 6-inch pipe, unusable, cut out 37 inches. We replaced it with and I put all that down. The high max is the 6-inch, and that's what we need on these tickets. Because like this ticket down here on Main Street, that's the 3rd time that's been dug up that I know of in the last approximately year. So are we not doing things correctly? I mean, there's like there's all kinds of different scenarios. One can be that the materials were faulty. And brass isn't as good as it used to be. I do know that because they've taken the lead out. The second one is that it's not put together right. It's over-torqued or under-torqued or whatever. The third one is when you're putting it back and backfilling, you don't do the compaction and the bedding correctly. It's just a few of the things. And I think we need to start asking these questions, because it's costing the town a lot of money. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Yes.
You seem to be really knowledgeable about this stuff, and I'm wondering if there's like a template form or something that we should have as part of our scope of work for this work, or something that we could ask them just to
I think
fill
that's
out.
something you have to make up for yourself. But I think because my husband and I, we have a excavating company, and we've worked for years. I've found over the years, the more information I put on the tickets, the better. Because in 3 months or 2 months, you come back and you're, oh, well, water leak at Flying Fork. What did we do there? This doesn't tell you what you did. Where if, like I was working on a ticket for the town, just an example, I try to put in exactly what they did. They took out, so I have pictures of the broken pipe, I have pictures of the parts that came out of it, because they had to take it out, and it had dented. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's amazing what water pressure will do to materials in a very short amount of time. And so for me, like putting down that it was 6-inch pipe, it was C900, that's thick, heavy pipe. They cut out 37 inches of it. They put back in 36 3/4 inches. They used 2 6-inch high maxes, which, if you know what a high max is, they're very expensive and they're very big. They're metal, they've got O-rings, they've got 2 to 4 bolts, depending on the type of high max it is. Put in a new saddle, a new curb stop. But then they also did some checking, and they found out the PRV was bad up above. So they spent time doing that, and they had to get parts for that, and they replaced that. And then, of course, we had another break yesterday, and it was on the vault on Minnesota Creek. And so, I put they pumped out the vaults, they replaced a 3-inch nipple or 3/8 inch nipple, and what they did. And I even put down that Josh cleaned the PRV screen, not just, and I just did that as a note.
Well, I think I think I'm having trouble asking my question, but on staff right now
I would
is
just
important.
tell them when they, you know, like they send in these invoices, I want what you did with the I want a complete description, and I might not divide it up between the track full of skid steer, you know, and stuff, but I put everything down and I put a complete description of and I would just ask for that. I want a description. I want how many loads you hauled in, how many loads you hauled off. Did you compact it? You know, because those are things that need to happen that aren't happening. And I feel like I'm getting myself in trouble because we're also contractors and the town has called us to work. So I feel like I've been belly aching about this stuff, but this is what I want to see. And it wasn't, I'm not trying to get work because my husband really didn't want it because of everything that's going on.
I think,
And
oh, I'm sorry.
no, you're fine.
I just, I work with contracting, but have no clue about the detail. You know, I don't know about water systems, but it seems pretty clear to me that when we contract with folks, that deliverables are expected, and I
Exactly.
think future conversations should include a
Most
justification for payment.
You know, and I feel like anybody that you use, and like Roop, I mean, they made over $10,000 in 4 days. Why are they charging a mobilization fee? I mean, up until this point, Roop has almost been steadily used for the last 3-4 years or longer. And somebody, I mean, they're charging you every time they do a mobilization. That's wrong. I mean, that's almost 20% of what they make. If they charge $10,000 for a bill for a total, and they charge you $2,000 a month in mobilization fees, that's 20%. That's 20% that we are all paying. And that's why the rates keep going up on our water. That's why I'm standing up here complaining, because I see both sides of it. I understand you have to make money and you have to do it right. But you've got to be honest. And you guys have got to ask questions. Everybody does. And it's not you know what, if they don't want you asking questions, maybe they're the wrong contractors.
All right, thank you, Ms. Kendall.
You're welcome.
You've been
Thank
very,
you.
very helpful.
I have one piece of information to add to that, and thank you, and that is that the JDS report has said one of the list of recommended standard operating procedures that needs to be created is a generic water break form, what, where, suspected cause, detailed repair notes. That should be very helpful.
We have that.
And you have it, okay.
We created that, yes. And I actually made a note to look at adding, modifying the form to include work done, description, parts used, things like that.
So I would like to make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that, we had talked about the RFP to start fresh with contractors, and I'd like to make a motion that that RFP be created in the next month.
Yep.
Yeah, we still have a disbursements motion,
Yes,
but
we
wait,
need to
were
get
you,
through disbursements.
but-
I forgot
Sorry.
about that.
but before we get back, were you talking about the RFP for the ORC?
All right. Look, Ms. Watson, you've already had a chance to speak on the. I'm sorry. Okay.
My report,
I know.
not
All right,
yours.
sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay, I do want to say I appreciate what Chris Kendall said, because what this is actually asking for, when you think about it, is getting beyond that employees who keep everything in their head. And so instead of having to hire an expensive ORC now to put it down on paper, if we can start requiring that, putting down on paper incrementally with everything that's being done, so it's right in line with what you guys are trying to do, putting things on paper. And I know the trustees want to know what should we do, but that's why you hire a professional administrator. This is in the scope of their knowledge to implement something like this. So it's something that I think we need to move forward on. And then, of course, if you're approving bids yourselves, this is something you can ask for. And if you don't have contractors that don't want to give you good receipts, then you don't use them until they figure out how to do it. And then they can be back on your list again. And it's kind of a Pavlovian thing. Thank you.
All right. Any other? Yes.
I was going to ask clarification from Trustee Smith.
We'll get that when she makes her motion. So let's go ahead and finish the motion for disbursements. We have a motion and a second to approve disbursements. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, Ms. Smith, make your motion.
My motion is create an RFP for construction contractors and have it advertised by February 28th, 2022.
What is it you need to know? You got it. Okay. Can it, yeah.
Just a generic RF, what are you looking for specifically?
Looking for to start fresh with construction contractors, so put out a request for proposal for whatever kind of construction you've been hiring ROOP and anyone else for. Road construction, I don't know what the generic term would be, but whatever you,
So what
excavation?
what you're looking for, well, they do excavation and they do the repairs and things when they're in there, but you're looking for a rate list, basically, right? I mean, you want me to solicit and find out what services they offer and what they charge for trucks. When we had this conversation, that's why I'm looking for clarification. When we had this generalized conversation, it was what do they charge per hour for a truck? What do they charge per hour for tipping? What do they charge for hauling? Those kind of things. Yep.
Whatever works, but what I want to do is stop having a monopoly for the town. So however you get the information out to get more information from multiple contractors that can do the work here. I don't understand what that would be. If it's a bid list, bidding out what it takes for certain equipment by the hour, whatever you do. But I am concerned about how much money we are providing to ROOP as a monopoly, and I'd like to see that modified. That's not my motion, that was the comment.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so is it clear now with her motion that you know what to do, or should we change the wording of the motion?
No, I understand. I just do want to remind the board that that's two pretty substantial RFPs that I have to have completed in less than 28 days from each other and published. So I just want to remind the board that as we're in the middle of what we're doing right now with a temporary ORC that I only have a contract through February, that we're adding some pretty big tasks on top of all the other tasks that I'm currently working on.
I appreciate that, and actually I was wondering what we should do about the fact that their contract ends February 22nd, which we didn't know as of I didn't know that because I didn't have time when I made my motion. So I understand exactly what you're saying, but I do feel like we need to get prescriptive information. So let me modify the motion for the construction RFP to the end of March. I don't know.
And so on that, so for board awareness, I do plan to have a representative from SSG at the next meeting. They're just trying to get through some things before I took them away from that and brought them in here so that they can have that conversation. And the reason it only goes through February is because it was an emergency action, and anything beyond that 60 days, I wanted them to come before the board.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion. Let me see your paper. Okay, a motion to create an RFP for construction contractors and have it advertised by March 31st, 2022. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion by the board. Yes, Ms. Bedinger.
To do what? What project? I mean, usually when you send out an RFP, there's a project you want them to do. I mean, this is just a general, hi, who are you? What do you charge?
Yeah.
Is there such a thing as that?
Yes.
Yeah, we can call it a bid list or whatever, but Corinne understands
Thank
what
you.
we're going to do. Mr. Knudsen, did you have your hand up?
Well, I was a little concerned about allegations of honesty with Roop, and I didn't necessarily have that experience because they did a project at our house. So what they bid and what they did was exactly what we expected. The hours came in exactly as I expected. So I want to be clear that I don't have those same concerns about the work that they're doing. I believe that mobilization is pretty standard with many contractors, that they have to send staff out to their yard, get their machine loaded up on a lowboy, get the machine over to the site, and then they start charging. So some people charge from the time they're in the yard, and they don't have a mobilization fee, but you're still paying it. So I wanted to be clear about that. The second thing is I wonder if the RFP can be not an RFP per se, but just what the town's looking for is we want to know what contractors are out there who can respond quickly to emergency needs. And as an example, here's an emergency need. What would you charge to do this, and how often, how quickly can you be deployed? I don't know if it needs to be a big deal, but we just want to make contractors aware that we're looking for this, and we'd like them to fill out this form about what their charges would be.
Yeah, and that sounds pretty much like what Paige is asking for. Yeah. Anything else from the board? Okay, Ms. Kendall?
I was just going to comment pretty much the same as Dave, but just ask for a price. And, you know, and say, because you never know how quick you can respond. You know, you might be in the yard, you might be in Hotchkiss, and you just have to, you know. And then for what you want, I would tell them I want for every detail. I want depth, size of the pipe, you know. I don't want just Main Street and Flying Fork water leak. I'd like to know what we did.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right. All right, we have a motion and a second to create an RFP for construction contractors and have it advertised by March 31st, 2022. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right, next up is the consent agenda. Can I get a motion for the consent agenda?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that we approve the consent agenda with the recognition that we appointed a new council member. Their name is Canuston. And Canuston did a lot of work in one of these minutes in December. There were 16 things that Canuston did. But I'd like to make sure that we recognize that we appointed Canuston.
Okay. So we need to motion acceptance with changes to the minutes. All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion from the board? All right, yeah, Paige?
I feel like we can't accept these minutes as is because the December 14th minutes are actually an amalgamation of 3 different meetings. They do not just reference what happened on December 14th, because in the December 14th meeting minutes here, I am the public and a trustee.
Oh, dear.
So, and things, for instance, if you go to page 24, I had back in December 14th, I believe I had asked, Paige Smith made the comment regarding how the budget numbers had been changing consistently. And if you remember, I said this is kind of funny because it actually, I said constantly. And I've already done that. I brought that up in the last meeting.
Oh.
The meeting minutes need to be fixed. So these December 14th meeting minutes are completely a jumble. They do not reflect the December 14th meeting. And the January 11th meeting minutes, I just want to note that the footer on those is incorrect. And there are just a few more minor problems in the January 11th meeting minutes, which I'm scrolling to look for. I thought it would be good if you go to page 30, we have Trustee Smith moved to amend the motion to have the RFP advertised within the next 2 weeks, not the RFP we're talking about tonight. And then I ultimately withdrew that motion, and I thought it would be very good to explain why that motion was withdrawn in the meeting minutes. And I withdrew it because I wasn't giving you enough time to do it, and I think that should be clarified, that that's why I withdrew it, just for historical purposes. And one more comment, one more issue. Oh, sorry. So if you go to page 32 of the packet, the fourth paragraph down is a not very well constructed sentence or paragraph. It doesn't make much sense and needs to be rewritten. And one more, if you, on that same page, under no motion was made, town administrator stated that no action is required, etc. It's an incomplete first sentence. And I have issues with what's on 33
I
as
tell
well.
you what,
Let's just start over.
Paige, why don't you note your things, all your things, and provide them in writing so that they can actually correct them?
I will.
Okay, thank you very much. That would be nice.
But wait a minute, one question. Do you want me to send that in an email to Candy? Can I do a strike and underline? Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Can you send it to me in a Word version? Thank you.
Okay. I saw a hand, I thought, over here. Yes, Mr. Johnson.
I'm sorry, I'm a little slow to act. I had a few questions on the last item. Is it appropriate to just ask questions? Specifically on Trustee Smith's motion. Can we have a quick conversation on that? I'm sorry, my brain's not. We're moving, and then we're slowing down, and so I'm falling a little behind. Is
All
it
right.
appropriate or inappropriate?
Well, it's inappropriate because it's already been passed and whatever. But if go ahead and.
I just I want to. I'm concerned that we don't have a goal. I think it's good to have the prices for transparency, but I think we should have an outcome of the RFP, which could be like an approved vendors list, where we could fix costs for a year with the people that respond to the RFP, and just have an outcome outside of information that's involved with the RFP itself. Those are my comments.
Okay, and we can, once we get the list, then we can go ahead and do the second part. Okay. All right. Where are we? We're at the consent agenda.
I made a motion to approve the consent agenda with corrections.
All right. Do I have a second? Yeah, Bo?
I have some reservations proceeding because I don't know what those corrections are going to be based on the fact that there's going to be a subsequent red line. So I think we would either table it or we would go through the corrections this evening, would be my recommendation.
And I want you to know I'm not going to go through December 14th and clean them up. It is too many, there are too many things in there that are jumble. So I say I absolutely agree to table it, and I'm happy to help with the January 11th meeting minutes, but not December 14th. It's too big of a conundrum.
All right, so we have a motion to table the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, let's move on to unfinished business. Dark skies ordinance, second read. So this has come back to us with the changes that were noted in the last thing about the descriptions.
That is correct. The board requested modifications and to appropriate zoning code sections and definitions were implemented into this version.
Okay, discussion from the board. Yes, Dave.
Just wanted to thank Ms. Watson for her comments that helped guide us. So.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Mick.
Well, I would like to take that a little bit further, and I think she has a good idea that we, well, first of all, dark skies isn't urgent. I realize we already have passed on a first reading, but her comments, I think, are very powerful, and we need to all stop and take a close look at this. And I specifically like her recommendation that we let the new attorney take a good close look at this before we pass it. So I would move that we can, I don't think it's we can't discuss it tonight, but I move that we have our new attorney, once he is on board, to take a close look at this, and particularly to her comments, and help us make this a correct ordinance that we can be sure is sound.
Do I have a second?
I'll
I
have to write
second
that
it.
down.
Further discussion from the board? Yes, Mr. Knut.
This is somewhat frustrating to me because I think this is one of the reasons we led to the loss of an attorney, because we're allowing the public to be our attorney. This ordinance is coming to us from our attorney, who has looked over at, and I believe our attorney has seen those comments. If not, then yeah, I would support the motion. But if the attorney had not seen the comments, then yeah, I would support the motion.
Have you seen the comments, Bo?
Yeah, no, I have seen the comments. I have to say that I think it's somewhat of a fair point from Mrs. Watson's perspective. The town is in the midst of kind of going through a series of potential updates. 2018 IBC, potential master plan coming down the pipeline, comprehensive plan, and then coupled with all of that, you're kind of layering some of these concepts that are there. So I wouldn't say that, to the initial point, I wouldn't say that necessarily, I don't know how this would square with kind of dark skies, because I think that they do try to operate within a relatively quick parameter, but I would defer, I haven't had those discussions, so I would defer to what their thought process would be. But absent that, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a pressing issue. Some of the comments that would note that there is no E in Ridgeway, coupled with that is the same process that, as I understand it, for Paonia was from Ridgeway, in that it was a citizens group that worked with the Dark Skies Advisory Committee in terms of what they typically see for the ordinances, and so that's where it originally came from. With Ridgeway, it was written by planning, and in the Ridgeway code, it's a separate code section, but it's a cross-reference to the building code in Ridgeway. That's why I had put it in the proposed to put it in the building code here, because frankly, I see that it would tie into, if you're getting a building permit, or if you're going through, this would be another way that you would kind of direct your attention. But that was my thought process. To the extent that it wants to be tabled, I would welcome that, and I don't have any concerns.
Yes, Ms. Beck.
Yeah, I'd like to further comment on that. It isn't that I don't trust Bo, it's that I think there are enough questions in here that, again, this is not urgent. The town's going to have 10 years to come into complete compliance. I think people are already starting to take action. I've seen some changes with some of our neighbors. In their big bright lights are being turned off now and replaced. And I just think if we're going to pay to have this published, let's make absolutely sure it's 100% right. And I would also ask that one thing we don't get to see is where the changes are made. It would be so nice to have a red line, to have a, where the strikes, where the amendments, where the changes are made, so that we don't have to go through it with 2 pieces of paper and go, okay, what's changed? It's so easy to show where the changes are, and it would be so very helpful to be able to see where these changes have been made, because I don't know about you all, but I had a very busy weekend and week, and I didn't have time to go through it line by line, and I really wanted to do that. So just wanting to further explain why I would like to see this. It is not a distrust in Bo, not at all. So.
Okay. Yes, we do. Yeah, Mr. Thompson.
I agree with the comment tracking. I think that's a great recommendation. I want to be a little careful about getting everything 100%. Are we getting every ordinance written 100%? Are we running every ordinance through the same process? And if that is occurring, then I agree that we should do that with this. But if this is getting more scrutiny, then it seems like we haven't been doing things right, we're treating this with undue scrutiny, or something else. So I just wanted to comment on process, that we should be doing everything the same regardless of what the ordinance is.
Okay, anything else from the board? Okay, anything from the public? Oh, I'm sorry, Dave.
Well, I just want to point out that there was a citizens group that both Trustee Johnson and I were a member of, that we have been working on this for a long time before we brought it into the board. And we solicited business memberships. We've been working on this for several years. We've been really patient with it, coming to the board several times, being sent back to planning and zoning for public hearings, and back to the board again. So I hope that everyone understands my impatience tonight with, once again, delaying a dark skies that, you know, we didn't go out and try to make a citizens initiative and have everyone vote on it. What we did was try to follow the process. And it does seem to me, in my time on the board, that this is getting so much more scrutiny than any other ordinance we've passed in my 3 years here, that I'm really frustrated right now. So I'm just expressing that. I will be voting against this.
Yes, Ms. Watts.
I appreciate your frustration. It is getting perhaps a little bit more scrutiny, but I think the reason why is this, what I feel is a little bit of an inability to put it in the appropriate part of the code. And I don't see why it's so difficult to do that. When you say that it actually went, you've reviewed it with planning and zoning, that's completely inappropriate if you're not putting it in the zoning section. The reason the Planning Commission exists is for Chapter 16. The Planning Commission does not make judgments or pass recommendations on anything outside of Chapter 16 and 17, the land use regulations. That's where their authority lies in state statute. And I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of our code and where certain ordinances are supposed to live. And the reason why I think the dark skies should live in that Chapter 16, it's aspirational. It's not nuts and bolts building. There are a few issues like temperature of light, but you don't have to get a building permit when you decide to put a light pole out in your yard. Of course, I suppose it might be electrical, but there are very many things in here. If you look, we want to protect the dark skies. We want to protect migrating wildlife. That has no business in the building permit. That's aspirational. That's goal-driven. That's the vision of our community. And it's not such a big thing. I mean, it could have been put in planning and zoning last summer if what I consider the correct processes would have been chosen and put in front of the board at that time. So what it needs is, if it goes into Chapter 16, the reason why codes in Chapter 16 get more scrutiny is because the things that restrict people's property rights, like telling you what you can do and can't do with your property, they're subject to court challenges. So when you put them in Chapter 16, there's a statutory requirement to do certain steps that the state sets forth, not just, I mean, I think we instinctively, what I'm hearing from Trustee Knutson is he instinctively feels like, yeah, we need to look at this more closely. But the thing is, we've got to do it in the context of what the statute asks, how the statute asks us to do it. And that's what keeps something strong if someone tried to challenge it. And take the town to task for creating this in a police ordinance. It also means that the next council can't come along and in one night, because technically you only need one reading to pass an ordinance. A new council could just in one night change this ordinance. But if it's in Chapter 16, it takes due process. It needs to go in front of the Planning Commission. It needs a public hearing in front of the board. You can't easily change an ordinance when it's in Chapter 16 because they're very well thought out, very thoughtful, and everybody's given a chance to really weigh in on it if they so wish. That's why I think Chapter 16 is a wise place to put an ordinance like this. Thank you.
All right, anything else? All right, we have a motion and a second to let the new town attorney take a look at this prior to it coming back, and then a suggestion that we get a red line copy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, that motion passes. All right, moving on to ordinance 01-2022 on the advisory water committee.
So first off, just a correction that in section 2-10-20, it should be no more than 6 members. And that even says in the next line in number 2, paragraph 2, that the 6 members, so that is correct. So, but again, we don't have the full ordinance here, and there is a chunk of this taken out, and there is some new language put in that not sure where it came from. So in right at the top of page 2, it says, in the event there is an appointment of town staff member or any appointed staff member that shall serve at the pleasure of the mayor, who may modify the staff member appointment. That was not in the original ordinance, and I don't know where or when that came from. Also, section 2-10-30 of the original was taken completely out, and that is the purpose of the committee. So I'm not sure what happened there. Is that something we discussed? Because I do not remember discussing
sorry,
that.
if I may.
Yeah, please, Mr. Gerlach.
So it was just, it's not being, 2-10-30 is not being amended at all. So it's just 2-10-20 and 2-10-40 that would be the amendments to the code.
So shouldn't we have a copy of the entire ordinance? I mean, to leave part of it out looks like this is, I mean, if somebody came along and said, oh, they approved that, what they're seeing is we approve something without section 2-10-30. My point being, we should have the entire ordinance in the packet. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't see any reason why we'd be cutting out parts of ordinances when we're looking at passing an entire ordinance. We should have the entire ordinance.
That was never my intent. Certainly, I apologize for any confusion. That was never the intent, and so certainly, you know, pretty clear that you guys are, a red line would be preferable, and I totally understand that. And it's a fair point. Again, it was just in an effort to, you know, the 2 sections of the code that I interpreted based on the meeting minutes were to change 2-10-20 and 2-10-40. So I totally apologize for any miscommunication and wasn't trying to cut out any sections or anything like that. That was only trying to, frankly, keep it down for publication. But happy to, you know, answer any questions that the board may have. Happy to bring it back with a red line and the complete ordinance, or can coordinate that with the town administrator so that we can make sure that copies are that available so that everybody's aware of kind of the changes that are being tracked.
I guess I would ask, is that what the board wants? And there is just another paragraph that I think needs to be slightly modified.
Well, if you want to go ahead and make a motion to get a red line copy of the whole ordinance and not just the update.
I move that at our next meeting that the board has provided a full copy of draft ordinance, what is this? Ordinance 01-2022 to include the entire ordinance. Did I say that whole thing right? Okay, I make a motion that the board receive an entire copy of draft ordinance 01-2022 2022. Did I say a red line? This is hard. Okay. Okay. By the next meeting, by the first meeting in February. And to include the removal of the,
Be the whole ordinance. We'll
Okay,
have
okay,
all those things in
okay.
there.
well, that shouldn't even be part of it, but okay, I got
Okay.
it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion by the board? Yes.
So first of all, I'd like to understand, I actually haven't a proposed motion that I'll bring up later about redlining. Because I was very frustrated reading this packet because there's so many places that I have no idea what was changing. And I had to literally go into code and do a side-by-side, and I shouldn't have to do that. And there were mistakes made that I think if a red line was done consistently on every document brought forth, those mistakes would be caught because you had to take such a fine look at it. So the one thing I'm not sure is what's coming is the language in number 2 isn't what we want in 20-10-20. Number 2 isn't been discussed and agreed upon, and the language in number 3, subsection 3, is not useful either. So I don't know if you want to start from the original, and then to me, part 3, we had a thing. It already said how the length of the term of the members that did need to be fixed. And we certainly I don't think we should have a town staff serve at the pleasure of the mayor. I think it went way beyond anything we needed to worry about, but I don't know what, Bo, you're going to do to fix it. I don't know what direction you have to modify.
Well, so as I understood, and maybe we can just have a conversation so that we're on the same page and we can either get some direction, or I think it's valuable to use the direction here. So again, it was my understanding that the goal was to decrease the membership, and then coupled with that, have the chair be a non-voting member, and then remove the
Yeah.
What we had talked about was not that the chair was a non-voting member, because the chair could be a public person. It was that the town, it previously had an employee on the committee, and we said at first we said that employee should not have a vote, but instead we took the employee out. So there's no longer, if you read
so
2.
Sorry to interrupt, Ms. Smith, but that's what I had done, is taken the employee requirement out, and then it was also my understanding that the direction was to have the chair be a non-voting member.
Yes. So if I may, Mayor.
Yeah.
So it was. So it's the history. Okay. The first time this came forward, it was to discuss whether or not, because the question that I had brought up and that the Advisory Water Committee Chair at the time, Trustee Meck, brought to the board was there had been discussion about changing the number of members, and there had been discussion about whether or not the board wanted staff and the chair to be able to vote. There was a very large conversation about that, and the board made the decision that they didn't want staff as a member on the committee, and that the chair would operate in the same mechanism as a mayor, meaning they only vote in a tie. That ordinance passed. After that happened, we realized that there was a math error in the other section. So we brought that ordinance that had passed on first read with all of the modifications in this ordinance. So the section that I provided the modification for was the section that talks about the preference of the board, because that's where we got caught up at the last meeting, was that it is the preference of the board that they no more shall be in town, out of town water committee. It is the preference of the Board of Trustees that the 6 members of the committee membership, that priority would be given to. And those were words that were specifically taken from the last meeting.
I want to add that we never talked about modifying 1 in town, 1 out of town, 1 authorized, because we just never voted on that, because I think we have to have more than 1 in-town water user on this committee.
Right, and so what this states is that priority would be given always, that there would always be 1 in town, 1 out of town, and 1 authorized representative from a water company.
I'm saying we should have 2 in town. always.
Okay.
But that is not what the board said at
That
the
is
last
not what
meeting.
we said last time.
I don't even think we got that far. That's
yes,
when we
we
all got
did.
fried.
No, we pretty much got that far last time, so it was just that the preference would be given to the three categories, one in each. Now, if you want to change that, you can change that, but we have a
So-
motion on the table. Tammy, did you want to say something? Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think it should be 2 in-town water users, 1 out-of-town water user, and 1 authorized representative of a local company. And that still leaves 2 other members to fill in wherever.
All right.
And that could even possibly be stated, that the other 2 members could come from any or either of these 3 categories.
All right, well, we have a motion on the table to get a red line copy of the entire ordinance 01-2022. Okay? Are we all on the same page on that one? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, that motion passes.
Seems
Now,
like-
do you want to
seems
make a
like-
motion to make it
Mayor,
two? Yes.
I apologize, but can we start here at the beginning under section 1? So is that the correct direction that you guys wanted, not less than 3 nor more than 7? Is that okay? Okay. Well, yeah, but just because you take the staff member out doesn't mean that it necessarily, you could still have more members at large. Well, sorry, but that wasn't in the minutes. So.
Okay.
All right, so 6, not less than 3, no more than 6. Okay, great.
All right. Now, do you want to make a motion about to make it 2 in-town water users? To change that number from 1 to 2? Yeah, but a minimum, priority 2, yeah.
Yes, but can I just ask a question of Bo? So on number 2, you're going to make it 5 members of the public. Okay. So I would make a motion that in number 2, priority shall be given to no less than 2 in-town water users.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
All right, so I have 2 nays. Get that, Candy? Okay. All right. Are we done with this now?
Seems like it's getting undue scrutiny.
Okay, then let's, oh, yeah, Mr.
So is the chair a voting chair? That's the last direction.
The chair serves the same as the mayor. They can be a tiebreaker, provide a tie-breaking vote.
Thank you, Bill Brunner again. Yeah, in terms of the mayor, or the chair of this board having a vote or not, I think that it's kind of funny unless you're going to put in here that the committee is going to work under full Robert's Rules of Order. You know, because that's where the thing about the chair voting, I think, is rooted. And this committee is not a decision-making body at all. It's a committee of people, just ordinary citizens, who don't have any binding authority at all. And I would suggest that you don't bar the mayor, the chair of this committee, from voting, kind of on those grounds. The other thing is, just in terms of what comes to the board, I think this is interesting, and you might want to take note that the discrepancy, it says in one paragraph that there shall be 5 members of the public, in the next paragraph it says 6 members of the public. In the first paragraph it says 5 members of the public, and then here's a little tagline down below that has, it's a Scribner. It shouldn't be in there at all. It's some kind of cut and paste error. And then in paragraph 3, Correct me if I'm wrong, but this lays out how you begin a committee so that you have staggered terms, but it neglects the language that says after the first term has gone off, everybody has a two-year term, because if you follow this, on the 6th year, everybody's off the board. And then on the back here, in paragraph 2 and 21040, it may hold at least one meeting per quarter. That's meaningless, as is all the language about the board would prefer or give preference and all that kind of stuff. Is absolutely meaningless, and it has no place, in my view, in an ordinance of the town. And when you have an ordinance that comes to you for your second reading for approval and parts of it are left out, I'm sorry. This is why we have an accountability initiative on the ballot, so that when citizens get stuck with the careless actions of the town, they have some realistic recourse to resort to. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brewer. All right. Now, let's move on to the discussion whether of what? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, please. Oh, turn big red book. Yeah.
My name's Kayla Rose, and I live on Lamborn Mesa. And I heard you say there would be at least one person on this water advisory committee from the outlying areas of the town, and at least 2 from in town. It's my understanding that there are approximately 1,500 people, and please correct me if I'm wrong, 1,500 people that live in town, and probably another 1,500 that are in the Paonia Water District, if you can call it that. So I'm just asking for another member for the outlying areas, if that would be considered.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Keene.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You know, I want to commend the staff here. I think we have a really good staff. And I think I hear some language, maybe I'm not hearing it right, where there's too much suspicion coming from people questioning the board, but I'll get back to what I want to talk about. I just wanted to put that in. Thank you for letting me say that. I think that when we're talking about the water, maybe this should be discussed with the water priorities. But I think one thing that, you know, happened 40 years ago here in Paonia. 40 years is a long time, but it happened. The town gave one of the coal companies 317 taps. I think that that should be in the agenda to be discussing that the town gets that back from the coal mine at a very good price. If it has to be a public-private partnership, I'm certain the money could be raised, 100% certain. And I think that that should be something that the board considers.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Ms. Watson.
Just a thought about the rationale between in-town and out-of-town users, and I suppose it's just so we feel like there's some representation, but another way to look at it would be to have a certain number of users on the 1 million gallon tank and a certain number of users on the 2 million gallon tank. Because if you get a majority of people who are on the 2 million gallon tank, what interest do they have of keeping the lower tank going? And I suppose town is typically the lower tank, but there are users in town that are on the 2 million gallon as well. So that's just another way to maybe split it up, not to make your life more complicated, but thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's John Nietzsche, and I live on Lamborn Mesa. I just have a question on, I heard you pass a motion that you wanted to have the RSPs finished for the water. The people that are taking care of the water tanks right now are temporary, is that correct?
it's a 2-month contract. That contract will expire in February 22nd. Yeah, and then we are putting out an RFP to see if we can get a contractor who will do it, the same kind of job for less.
So, but didn't you pass something that said the RSPs should be ready by March 31st?
It's a different, entirely
it is.
different
Okay.
subject.
Excuse me.
Okay,
Thank
no
you.
problem. Now let's move on to discussion regarding water project priorities. So we have a couple of documents in here. I am so glad that we got the better copy of the Advisory Water Committee's report. And so my personal opinion is pressure reducing valves, but that's just my opinion. But what does the rest of the board think? I mean, we've got two pretty good documents here outlining what we've got going on. Yes, Mr. Johnson.
Actually, in regards to the pressure reducing valves, we have a big discrepancy in the repair replacement of the pressure reducing valves between the water preliminary priority list and the Trustees Mac's item number 3 on her list with the water preliminary priority list has replacing or repairing 4 pressure reducing valves at $35,000 to $50,000, and in the other document that runs between $75,000 and $250,000. I think we need to discuss that to see which one is closer to accurate, and we definitely need to find that out.
Ms. Ferguson, do you have an answer for that?
Yes, the difference is that the initial, the cost for replacement and repair of all of them, JDS had estimated would be $75,000 and $250,000, but the JDS Hydro report wasn't taking into account the ones that had already had repairs and replacements. We've had a few that are new that had been put in, and that wasn't taken into account. It was estimated at overall cost for all of them that are on the system, and I believe we have 9 on the system. Although of late with the conversations that I've been having, I would absolutely say that while having the it's already in the final stages of engineering and getting ready to go to installation for the altitude valve is still very important. I would agree that the next priority on our list is to inspect and do any repairs and maintenance that need to be done in the PRVs, as well as I'm requesting information from JDS Hydro on if there's a weak spot in the system that they identified where we have another one that we had planned to install on the system that hasn't been installed yet. And so the reason it hadn't been installed was because we were waiting for some feedback from the modeling to see where the best location is in the system for that installation.
So that
Yes.
$35,000 to $50,000 is the correct number.
At the time that this list was made, that was what it was estimated at. I would expect there's been some inflation since then.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Smith.
Wondered, have you received the modeling for where the additional PRV should be?
No, not yet.
Do you know when you'll get that?
I don't, but I'll ask them that.
Because what I learned a lot on Sunday, seeing that break, that really is the weak link and why we're having so many breaks in this system. So I absolutely agree. I think the PRV has to be done right away, and I even think we need to get the money for it before we even do the 2 million gallon. I just think it's because we're spending all this money on breaks and people are losing their water.
I would agree. We're definitely going to have to reprioritize this list based on information as it's coming in. I think the items on the list are still very much a priority, and they weren't all in order necessarily, but definitely some reprioritization and looking at funding, because we are having to divert some funding toward the repairs and things that need to take place in the plant. We've got, and before we can go and start getting the one, so we can bring the one back online, we've got to make sure that we've secured the 2 and that we keep the 2 online. And that is the goal right now, is to get what needs to happen at the 2 million plant that is servicing water and is collecting all of our water right now, where it needs to be, so that we then can move staff to the 1 and do the things that need to be there so that the 1 can be online, as in distributing water into the system.
Do you know, do we have to hire someone specifically to inspect every one of those PRV vaults?
No.
Or do you know exactly which ones need to be replaced and which ones need further repair?
I have information, but I want it corroborated.
Do you have someone to corroborate it with?
I was talking with SSG today about that, and I don't have a specific individual yet, but I will follow up with that.
So, so obviously we're going to be spending more money than we were anticipating, and I would ask that we be kept abreast of how much money is being spent, because I feel like what I learned on Sunday, we have so much that needs to get done. That is a priority, and I really do think we're going to have to look at our budget again.
I
and
would
do
agree
a
with
lot
that.
of rearranging.
I would agree with that.
And so that needs to be right there on the top too.
Yes.
I mean, on the top of things to do to get this a handle on this, because this is a mess.
Ms. Greer, the president of SSG, we had office meetings every day for the last week and this week so far, every day. And she is working on the costs where they're at right now, so that we have where they're at, what they've expended to date, where they expect to fall within the budget. They're looking at their own budget so that they can make some adjustments and to bring costs down to the point. And, you know, again, a testament to the fact that we're also, I'm going to let the board know, I'm heavily looking at the staffing when it comes to specifically the water and sewer side, because these are highly trained individuals that do exactly this. This is the business they want to run, coming in and assisting systems that are in dire need of assistance and helping small communities that don't have the funds like the big cities do. And this is 2 FTEs that were assigned to us, and they're bringing on another one at a lower cost, and so that we will not be, when that other person is on, we actually will be saving. There will be a savings.
And you're referring to SSG.
Excuse me, what?
SSG has 2 FTEs and they're bringing on a partial.
Just for the town of Paonia.
So we really need to understand how much expenses are here and
Yes.
not after the fact, ahead of the fact. And if we have to have a
she's getting
special
it right now.
meeting, absolutely. We cannot keep talking about this. It has to get done.
And it's in.
And we have to find the money.
And I agree, and that's what we're doing.
Okay, other comments from the board? Yes, Mr. Johnson.
I have some comments, higher level comments on just prioritization. It's my belief that outside of the known broken infrastructure, that public safety should be our #1 prioritization issue. I see that as things that hurt people, issues with lead and water treatment. I think our #2 prioritization issue should be shoring up our water rights. If we don't have water, the rest of this stuff doesn't matter. And the fact that we have water right concerns or inadequate information on water rights, I feel is just unacceptable in a western town. I think the third prioritization should be the source, fixing our springs and the collection. Without that, everything else is broken. And then we can start moving down into things like storage tanks, the lines to the tanks, the lines that distribute the water. But I think we need to start there, and these are my suggestions. I think we need to start with like really clear standards before we start getting into these lists. And that's what I have to say.
Other comments from the board? Okay, Ms. Kendall.
Chris Kendall. I'm kind of confused on some of this. I thought we already had the low altitude valve. I thought that's what we were told months ago.
No, well, the board approved the engineering and then approved the additional funding so that it could be put in, but it hasn't been completed yet. And the board, and that was reported to the board.
So we do have it.
It's been approved. It's not finished being manufactured so that it's ready to install yet. No, it's still in fabrication.
Okay. Also, on the PRVs, instead of putting in new ones, are we talking about doing not replacement, but rebuilding them?
Yes, so when we say repair replacement, we would repair, and that would include a
'Cause I know
rebuild unless they needed to be replaced.
A lot of times they just replace them instead of repairing them, and the repairing can be, or rebuilding them can be a lot better. Also, I thought Travis was helping you guys, giving you information. I thought he stayed on longer. Is he still being paid?
No.
To do, well, don't get,
No, I'm saying, no, he's not being paid.
okay, and he's not helping with any of this stuff anymore.
When I asked, he has started his other job and is no longer working in the area of the town. When he's available and I'm able to get a hold of him and ask him a question, he answers. But currently, no, he's not on payroll. Should he be in town for any length of time and we needed him to come out and do anything for any extended length of time, it would be my expectation that he would be compensated, yes.
Okay. Because it seems to me like we've lost a lot of money and stuff, and I'm not sure exactly on things that should have already been done, and we're repeating ourselves on some of this stuff. And also, I know there's a rumor going around that Jeff Roop's going to be our new
First time I heard that rumor, and boy, I've heard a lot of them lately.
I heard that from a couple people this weekend.
No, that is not accurate information.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Rosen.
Kayla Rosen. I heard you say that there's a need for a utilities manager for the town, and I can see that Ferguson is doing all this work, and you're eligible. But I'm wondering if we hired the right person who has a background in utilities and in water, that maybe this could be done more efficiently. I don't know what else your responsibilities are, but I can only imagine as the town administrator that you probably have other duties other than water. So, I don't know if the efforts being made to find this person, and they are already budgeted for. How close are we to getting someone hired?
Yes, all of those things, except I couldn't answer how close we are to having someone hired at this point. We are advertising, it's out on we have what are called listservs, which is I am on 2 listservs. One is a clerk in the state of Colorado, also on the managers listserv for managers and administrators in Colorado. Colorado Municipal League, our representatives with Department of Local Affairs are aware, as well as advertising in local and neighboring jurisdictions, newspapers, CML, and things are statewide. Yeah, we're advertising. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think as we're going for a new Public Works Director, when that happens, we should allocate and reach out to Travis and see if he's going to be available on Zoom meetings to get this new person up to speed. Because if there's anyone in this town that knows the infrastructure, it's Travis. We don't have him anymore. So I think we should reach out to Travis and as best we can, send him 2 boxes of chocolates and say, look, we need you. Can you spend a week with us after we hire the new person? Because of anyone on the staff, it's Travis that can, if he has a week with the new person, can really get him up to speed or her up to speed with what's going on. And the other thing I just want to bring up as far as priorities, we've got 317 water taps that it's been explained to me and graciously explained to me in detail that the town should never, ever have sold. We've got water problems now statewide. Now, when they were sold, the idea was that the coal company wanted it to get into the housing development business and build housing for their employees. Well, that's completely changed now. And if they're sitting dormant, the last thing I think we want to see is a group of people going to the county and the coal company, acquiring those 317 water taps, and then right above town we have 10,000 square foot homes being built. I don't think we want that. So I think that we need to get proactive with this and reach out to the coal company, send them 5 boxes of chocolates, and say we need to get those water taps back. You'll get lots of great publicity helping out a small town, and we get our control of our water back a bit more. Thank you very much.
And I would like to mention that, yes, we have reached out to the coal companies. Mr. Nerlin has reached out to the coal companies. I went and talked to the Attorney General of the state of Colorado that's in charge of water to see if the state could give us any help in getting these taps back. And at this point in time, the answer is Peabody is not interested. They have not responded to us at all in any respect. The Attorney General said he can't help us at all. We sold them legally. They're done. They're gone.
Well, thank you for explaining that, Madam Mayor.
And for clarification, they actually were in a trade. It was there was a trade by the previous owner. It was the Mays that owned them. I think that the confusion when we talk about what Mr. Keenan's talking about is that I made the statement to him that in hindsight, it's very clear to see why the town should not have sold and had so many taps in standby. Because when you put a tap in standby, it means they own the tap and they have the right to that tap. And if there's not some type of limitation on how long they can have it without it being instituted, then this is the situation we end up in, where we have an obligation to water that hasn't been installed, and people have bought taps that could install them, and are we overcommitted?
And if I just may say, maybe we're not doing a good a job trying to sell the idea to the coal company. Maybe we should have the school classes send them personal notes and send them 10 boxes of chocolates. Thank you very much.
All right. We really do need to kind of truncate this discussion. We are trying to decide what are we going to spend our money on going forward, looking at grants. So the whole Peabody water tap thing, that's a discussion for another time. That is way down on our list. So if you have input as to what our priorities should be in the short term, I will listen to you. Ms. Watson.
I want to say there's an organization called the Colorado Rural Water Authority. Are we a member of them? Are we a member? Because they also, you can advertise jobs on their website, and I haven't seen any job postings from Paonia, Colorado. I don't know if we utilize them. I hear you talking about this contractor that we're using. They're very expensive, and it sounds like there might be associations, nonprofits, that can give us some of this technical advice. We're not rich. We're on a really fine line here, and any way that we can find organizations that are out there. The Colorado Rural Water Association, most of their membership are towns under 10,000 in Colorado, and I don't know. Corinne's not here. I don't know if we've reached out to them at all.
Suzanne, we are talking about
yes,
what projects.
Exactly. So I think the first thing you need to do is see if there are other professional help you with these projects. You're talking about projects, but you're also talking about a very expensive contractor. So anyway, technical assistance from places that are nonprofit that hopefully we belong to still. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So it looks like, yes, Mr. Bruner, again.
Bill Brunner. Maybe this is completely off base. I'm going to make it short and I'll go back and sit down. But there is a water moratorium in effect, and there is not a single word about figuring out how to get out of that by building ourselves out and fixing the problem. And I'm disappointed, and I wish there were some priority given to that, some acknowledgement of that particular problem in the document. Thank you.
And that we can't do anything about until we get the JDS Hydro report. So, all right. So now, so it seems, did you have something to say, Mr. Thompson? Yeah, please.
The reason that we're doing this exercise is because we don't have a plan. And so, and I see our plan as a priority too, and so I just wanted to make the comment that we're going to continue to do this exercise into the future until we have a plan. And so we should reconsider the way we prioritize our spending on the plan so that we can get out of this short-term ad hoc decision process.
Thank you. And I think definitely the things that we have talked about this evening with the PRV valves and the altitude valve and the relining of the tank all are serious public safety issues. So they are at the top. It's just we have blown that up and are looking at pieces in that top section.
It would be helpful for me on this list. Some of these safety risks and some don't. And so it would be helpful for me to see that. It would, all I have to say, sorry.
So at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, board, that we're looking at, we need to look at the altitude valve, the PRV valves. Yes, okay. All right, so if we move into the mayor's report and what our abilities are as far as grant go, there is, right now, there are a couple of DOLA grants, Tier 1 and Tier 2 grants. Yes, Tammy.
One thing the Water Advisory Water Committee wanted was a plan for the PRV vaults. I think if you're going to go for grants to do that, you need a plan as to how those vaults are going to be repaired.
Well,
and there really isn't a plan.
Well, and the thing is, so to go for the money, you don't need a detailed step-by-step plan to go for the money. And what I'm addressing now is the money we're going to go for. So right now, there's currently a Tier 2 DOLA grant for $700 and I believe it's 20, and it could be $750,000. That is due by February 18th. This grant could pay for the majority of the tank relining in conjunction with the money that we got from the ARPA funds. There is also an ongoing Tier 1 grants, which go up to $75,000. We could apply for both the Tier 2 $750,000 grant first because its deadline is now, and apply for the Tier 1 grants to do the PRV valves. And that does not have to have that I mean, it's ongoing. So every 6 months. Tier 1. Tier 1 are the smaller grants, Tier 2 is the big grant. But if we want to get that big chunk of change from DOLA for 2022, we have got to get that grant in by February 18th.
I move that we apply for that grant.
Second.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
No, I
Need a
wanna discuss.
discussion first.
So, I actually had a motion that I had written up about all these grants, because we need to hear this where is going on with grants. And this is my, we need to hear, my motion, I'm gonna just describe what is, we have got to know what grants are out there and what you are looking at in a written format I don't know what we have to do for 750,000. Do we meet, I don't know what the criteria are, and we need to know that.
And that's the thing, is that I don't know what the criteria are. We're meeting with the regional manager, Dana Levesque, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
And we will get that information tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And he has not been available since he had to go to the Boulder Fire to do any of that work for us.
And I understand that, but there was a Cora made, and we have seen emails of different emails to different agencies that you could have described to us on January 11th, what you had been doing on January 6th. So here is my motion, and it can be for discussion. Mayor Backman must include in each agenda packet a detailed reporting of the grant investigation activity that has occurred between trustee meetings, to include granting agencies contacted, summary of meetings held, what has been learned about funding opportunities, which grants will or will not be viable. We are shooting in the dark here because we have no idea where you're going, who you're talking to, which ones are off the table, which ones are on the table. What is the priority you're asking for? It can't just be verbal like this. We need to see it in writing and know where we're going. You have people helping you, and I have another motion, but for now, this is not an ad hoc thing. This is public money. We have taken an oath of office to protect the citizens of this town, and you're just telling us there's $750,000 and we don't know what it is. We should have known about that as soon as you know.
And I did tell you that. I reported that out at the last meeting, that there was a Tier 2 grant for $700 and some odd thousand that we were going to apply for.
But here's my point. What is a Tier 2 grant? I don't know what that means. What does it mean? Who can apply? What are the criteria that it's not in writing? You are just throwing out words. This is why I was not happy. We really need someone who, this is their job, is to do grant writing. This is too important. It would be spending more money, but we need a person who that is their sole job, not a volunteer person and other volunteers. This is too ad hoc. Anyway, that's my thought.
Mr. Knutson.
I recall that we discussed in a previous meeting and actually voted on requiring that we have in-kind costs, staff time, any of those criteria that we approved in advance before we go for any grant. I'm not hearing any of those with this grant. I can't see that we should approve this motion. What we should do is follow our process. We have said that our board is approving any grant we go for, and this is the criteria we want to hear before we approve. If we need a special meeting and we have to put a special meeting together in order to get a quorum and approve a grant, let's do it. But I'm going to vote against this motion because I do not believe we have the criteria that we have already agreed on. We said this is what we want to know before we go for a grant. And there's a motion on the table to approve this grant right now? No?
No.
Okay. So there's no motion.
It's going to
We're
come
not
back to
gonna
the
not-
board. There's a motion to apply for it.
Okay.
But that's the other thing that I talked about the last time that this came up, is that I have to go out there, or any grant writer has to go out there and collect the information. And part of that is writing the grant. You have to go and look at the entire grant. You have to start writing it out before you can say it's going to cost us X number of dollars. This is what we are eligible to apply for. And staff time, that is a...
I'm sorry, I was not born yesterday about grants. Grants say in their proposal, this is what in-kind costs are. These are very simple things, Mary, that don't need to be given to us before you write the grant, and that's what we're talking about. And I'm sorry I'm being so definitive right now, but I feel like there's been motion going off and we're not being brought along as a board. And so we said as a board, what we want to know is what are the costs to the town? We want to know if it's going to meet our priorities, because we just did a discussion about a housing grant that we turned down because it's not our priority. We want to be able to do that with every grant. So I'm fine with doing a special meeting. Call a special meeting once you have that information, but please do not write a grant unless we have approved it in advance, and give us the criteria. Thank you.
I will get as much information as I can. I know on DOLA grants, it's a 50-50 match. And we have the money from ARPA to do the 50 match on it. So that's just across the board on all DOLA grants, they want 50%. CDOT is running 20%.
My point is this needs to be in writing, not ad hoc in a meeting like this. And when you go for a grant, there are bullet points of what you have to be, what you need in order to be eligible. That's what I'm looking for, is what does the Tier 2 grant offer, and what are the sidebars in that grant, and do we fall within the sidebars, and what does it mean? But this is just too important to be left to you and a volunteer, who I have another motion about that. I honestly think we would be better off. There are people who understand all of these programs. They understand the Department of Interior, the ARPA, all the different agencies that provide water grants. And I think that would be money well served, is to hire someone that is all they're doing, and they know how to write the reports, they know how to put in front of us what the criteria are. You can't go for that one because you're not poor enough. You can go for this one. But there's no system here. And I'm just not comfortable that you have taken it upon yourself to do this on your own and bring in non-elected officials, non-employees, non-contractors, contacting agencies and saying they represent the town of Paonia. I'm not okay with that. This is too loosey-goosey. We need to pull back. I'm sorry. I want to make this has to be. I am going to continue with my motion after we're done with this discussion, but this cannot be you outside of our purview on the phone with various people. We don't have any idea what they're asking you. There are places, if you would send an email to all of us with a link to the 3 grants, just picking a number that you are seriously looking at, and say, if you want to know more, please check out these links. I will go look at them, because this is too important to leave us out of it. There's too much, and you're leaving us out of it. These are too general things that you're bringing. It's too general. I'm here to serve the citizens, and that's what we need to do, and we need to take that really seriously. And I just want to add, I absolutely appreciate the work you're doing on it, and I understand it, but it's too diffuse. It's not clear enough, and this is public money that we're working with, and we need much more record keeping and more transparency about it all. Thank you.
Okay, so we do have a motion to apply for the Tier 2 grant for $700,000 and some odd. Like I say, February 18th is the deadline. Not a lot of time. I can email the board with the links. I can email the board after we talk to Mr. Levesque tomorrow, everything that I know and that I can find out. But again, this is a very short timeline to write this grant. Yes, Mr. Knudsen.
It's a large amount of public business that needs to be done in the public, so it needs to be properly posted, and it needs to be in a special meeting.
Can we do it via Zoom? Okay. Yes, Ms. Buttinger.
I just wanted to comment that this is not money we're spending. This is the money we're getting to do these priorities that we just talked about. You know, we're getting it from another agency that we don't have to pay back. We have to pay half of it. Yes, we have to match it. And, you know, without them, we probably can't do half the ones that we have priorities for. So getting grants is, I understand you want to know, okay, well, what are we signing ourselves up for? Certainly that, we need to know that. But, you know, this is public money. It sounds like we're going to go out and buy a new swimming arena or something. And we're not. You know, we're going to do our water things with this. So I think we should make a priority of our own to go after every grant we possibly can.
Mr. Thompson?
So your meeting with Dole is tomorrow? The meeting with Dole is tomorrow? For lack of I'm such a neophyte at this, I apologize. I would motion that we hold a special.
All, okay. This is probably going to fail, so let's just vote on it. All in favor of voting on the applying for the Tier 2 grant? All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, that motion fails. Now, Mr. Thompson.
I don't want to presume, but I think I'm somewhat reading your mind. So I did want to let the mayor know that we do have an email that just came in a little bit ago from Mr. Levac needing to reschedule tomorrow morning's meeting.
Mr. Thompson.
In lieu of the information, it seems like in an expedited time, expedited timeline, we need to come together in a special session to discuss the information that you get from DOLA and have a vote on this at that time. I'm 100% behind the prioritization of the water issues and especially the public safety issues involved. We're seeing it too often. I guess my question to the board is, how do we deal with the timeline that the mayor is operating under for this grant and make this decision based on the process that we voted on last meeting? So I put that out for discussion.
Mr. Knudsen?
I think many of us as board members, we need a quorum of 4 to conduct business, and I think many of us as board members are willing to act to support what you're trying to do, Mary, because we know you have the best interests of the town at heart, and you're really trying to do the right thing. So I'll stand as a board member that you call me, and I'm ready, and I'll be at a special meeting. And it's easy to do the Zoom meetings. We've done that really well. And so we really had a lot of discussion on what we want as a process, and I want to honor that. I think that process should be done, and it should be done in a transparent way. So if we're making big decisions, and it's not just town money. These grants are federal money coming that our taxpayers pay into the federal government and our taxpayers pay into the state government. So I don't look at it as free money. I look at it as all of it is taxpayer money. And we need to be responsible about what we're taking and what we're not taking. Thank you.
Anything else on this point? Yes, Mr. Thompson.
I just want to add that this process that we're going under would be so much clearer if we had the water plan done. And so I know we're doing ad hoc Band-Aids, but I just want to keep that focus on we need a clear strategy as quickly as possible while we're addressing these problems.
Are we, Ms. Kendall? And then we're going to move on.
Could I suggest, Chris Kendall, sorry. Could I suggest that when you see these grants and you're thinking you have to meet with somebody to talk about them, email the whole board. Send the whole board email and then ask them, whoever can, meet with you with them. Can't do that?
that's
Is
really
that too
getting
public?
cumbersome.
Okay,
Right,
so you
exactly.
just need a couple people to meet with you. But at
Right, and
least-
usually it's, yeah, I meet with the town administrator for almost all this stuff. The email thing that went around from Ms. Fogg, we were looking at, a couple members of the community said there's EDA grants out there for infrastructure. And so we were talking to EDA to find out if we qualify. We do not qualify.
Okay.
And I talked to the board about this at the last meeting, how we do not qualify. So, you know, some of it is just that. You call them up, you say, here's what we're looking at, do we qualify? And they say no.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just trying to think of a way that, and then you put it in writing for the meetings or
Yeah.
have a special meeting with it in writing
Yeah.
to get it out there sooner. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Yes, Mr. King.
It's a big difference between the private sector and the public sector. Decisions are not so easily made in the public sector. We have a responsibility that no more than, if there's more than two of us discussing town business, it has to be in a public meeting, and we just need to honor that. And so that may answer your question about that, because we can't just email everyone on the board and then we email back what our decision. Who in the public could have a chance to comment on that? They couldn't, see. So at least we have to post 24 hours in advance, have the meeting in a public format, and make the decision that way.
Okay, let's move on. Yeah. We're going to go to Roger Barrow's water tap moratorium building permit. Oh, we're not doing anything. I'm going to meet with Mr. Levesque at the first opportunity, gather all the information I can, bring it back. Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
I'd like to ask you to put it in writing, please.
Yes, I will put it in writing as soon as I get the information.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Barrow. I'm sorry.
Okay. I take this off. So I live on 330 Delta Avenue, and I have a 1.5 bathroom home, and I brought some plans to Corinne to remove a garage. It's old by the alley where I live, and beside and attached to my house would be the garage and a studio, or what you could call a room, an art studio, and she said that it would be okay to have a bathroom, a toilet, and a sink. I want to have a sauna and a toilet and a shower and a utility sink was in my plans. And the reason that she told me that I would not be able to go forward with those plans was because of a water moratorium. I think that there's homes where people have 5, 6, 7, 8 people living in a home, homes where they have 1, 2, or 3 people living in a home. I have irrigation shares at my property. I don't irrigate my yard with my water tap, as a lot of people do. They run lines to their trees or various places where with their water tap usage. I don't see anything in the moratorium that controls how we use our water. I did receive a copy of that. I did read it. I didn't see anything in there that dictated how we are to use our water. I'm a low water user. I'm a conscientious water user.
understand, so I'm here to move past that issue of doing what I propose to do, which is to live with whom I want to live with as my family, as anybody else would. What is a single family? And my friends are my family. I would like to be able to have my daughter be able to, so is this an ADU, or is this having home mates or roommates, living in the way that we would like to be able to freely live with whom we want to live with? And what are those kinds of definitions? And I am not, I think that to require an additional water tap would be a very inefficient and wrong way to go about doing what I think many people have added bathrooms and additional rooms to their homes, and I'm attaching my garage and my studio to my house. And you could call it if I want to be able to use my sauna, share it with others, if my daughter who's 19 wants to come back home and be able to have a place to live with me, or if I have friends that want to stay in this space about 300 square feet, if anybody who lives with me wants to contribute, or we're in agreement to contribute a certain amount of money to using our home together, I don't feel that that's anybody here's business. I get cotton mouth when I have to speak in crowds, so I'm going to get some water. So I want to get past the issue of ADUs or not. I'm wanting to be able to do something really simple here. And when some people have 2, 3, 4, 5 bathrooms, basements, and so everybody knows already that there's numerous people that have unattached spaces that people live in. I can show you plenty of photographs of that going on around town. So in looking at the bigger picture, I do hope that the issue of being able to condense housing in town, to be able to allow people to share their space and have a way of living in community in a better way. And, you know, I feel like I would like to be able to share my space. And I would like to do whatever I want. Do I want to, if I want to use this as an art studio, I need a shower with my sauna. Do I need to put the shower in the sauna? Do I have a separate door going from the outside or the inside so that my people, my family, my friends can share this space together? And it's not a big deal here. To say that I can't put in a shower and I can't put in a utility sink, but I can just put in a sink and a toilet. I don't think that's very appropriate. I pay for my water tap. It's my water tap, just like everybody else pays for your. I should be able to use my water tap the way I choose to use my water. And I'm not going to be using anywhere near the amount of water that many other people use in this town with my water tap. I'm not irrigating my property with my water tap. That's I pay for my share of irrigation from my property.
All right,
And
can we?
So this is pretty much my
Okay.
estimate.
Thank you very much.
I'd like
Yes,
to- I'd like
Mr.
to have a
Nerlin.
vote. I'd like to
Well,
get past the
no-
politics and just,
Well, we're going to talk to Mr. Nerlin because this does, the water tap moratorium does have a play in this, and so we're going to let Mr. Nerlin speak.
You're exactly right, Mayor. The water, so, Mr. Burrell, is it?
yes,
Yeah.
Burrell.
Yeah, Mr. Burrell has requested an agenda item, as is his right. So we've got two specific issues that we're looking at here. One is with respect to the sale of a water tap. I mean, I think that there's a strict interpretation of the moratorium that's in place that prohibits the sale of an additional tap. The other issue is with respect to the language in the moratorium. 13.1131A, definitions, moratorium, and then tap. Tap means the physical service connection to the municipal domestic water supply distribution system or right to water supplied by the town of Paonia. For the purpose of this section, tap shall also include the extension of water delivery pipes. Out of prudence and an abundance of caution, I've always taken the strictest interpretation of that language from the Citizens Initiative to in essence say situations where you may have a water tap, but to extend that on your property that would result in an increase in service, in my opinion, has been a violation of that moratorium. And so we want to get some direction from you guys in terms of if you guys wanted something deeper in terms of, no, why don't you guys explore that a little bit further in terms of providing a more formal memo. But it's always been my take, again, out of abundance in the spirit of what the Citizens Initiative is kind of a strict interpretation of that language as well, that if you're going to extend the water delivery pipes, that's a violation of the tap moratorium.
And so what I would add to that, and why I put that on the agenda summary form, requesting that addition, to have this conversation, is because this is something that has started to come up a lot. I've had a lot of realtors and individual property owners start to reach out and say, hey, if you're not extending a town line and I'm extending my line and I don't have to buy a tap, how can the town tell me I can't extend my line to do something that's permitted in the zone that I live in? So say they live in R1 and they want to add on a full bathroom, or they live and there's in a room that there's not currently water. This isn't like turning a 3/4 bath into a full bath or something like that, but taking water to a space that has no water to it. Or if somebody that lives in R2 already and isn't required to have, there are certain situations where you're not required to buy another tap. It's just billed on the service charge. And with its own meter, it's metered separately. So if they don't have to connect to the line and it's their private line they're extending, why can't they do that? Of course, for me, then the question is that where the denial comes is in the permitting process, because I can't allow a permit to be approved that would be an extension of a private water line if that's not the intention of the law and the belief and direction provided from the board. So
that's, we've always
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Well, like I said, this is going to be attached to my house. I think other people have done remodels and added bathrooms to their home and on the same water tap.
Right. Yes, Mr. Knudsen.
I'm not clear. If someone's remodeling their home and they're adding a bathroom, that would not be permitted under the moratorium, is that correct?
My understanding has been if someone was adding a bathroom or remodeling inside their home where there was no extension of a water line, then yes. But if you were going to do something, sorry, I'm going to use Roger's example of it's a detached structure that you then are building a breezeway to, you're increasing your square footage and adding, putting a breezeway to attach it to your home to make it an attachment to your home and adding new, then no, because you're extending your water line. So that's where the confusion.
What's the difference?
So I just want to be clear. When someone remodels their home and they decide we've got a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house and I want to add a master bedroom and a bath, that's permitted.
Provided it's not an extension of that water line.
So my water line, you know, I'll use a personal example. We've got a 2-bedroom house right now. And if we wanted to take our water line that's in our basement and run it over to the west end of the house and add a bedroom and a bathroom there, we could do that.
No, I don't think that you can. I don't think that you can extend your water line. That's always been my interpretation.
Okay, thank you.
And this is where the confusion and clarification is that it says you can't extend a water line. And so the way that we've addressed that is you can't extend a water line, whether it's your water line or a town water line, our lines, but you know, to service a new area. And so we need clarification on that. It hasn't been an issue till lately. Lately, we've started to have people asking.
Well, I think that this is really. How about if you take your hose that's coming from your hydrant and extend it to that tree over there, to water that one, or take 2 hoses and extend 3 hoses to a few other trees to use your water. This is my water tap that I'm paying for, and to nitpick on that level when I would be using far less water to have a shower.
So,
in a
I mean,
utility
again,
sink than
we
running
are bound by
water to
a
hoses.
citizen's
That's right.
initiative here that
Right,
you don't
exactly.
always get all of the language that you would be looking for, but this is where we're at, and in the spirit of that initiative, that has been our interpretation.
Right. Yeah, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, I appreciate the explanation that you two gave. I originally thought, well, okay, maybe the size of the water tap would make a difference, but in this instance, it really doesn't. Doesn't matter if you have, 5/8, 3/4, 1 inch, 2 inches. If you're extending that water line, you can't do it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Knudsen.
I'm wondering if Mr. Bruner could give us some guidance on, since he was one of the initiators of the.
More than 400 taps that are already committed for. From information that I got from our new SSG guy the other day, is our tank is currently refilling. It's not spilling, it's refilling, and I'd love to know why it's not full now, if it's not, at the rate of 4 inches a day. 4 inches of water in that tank a day is, I'm guessing, about 16,000 gallons. And that's not very much of a reserve when you consider you've got to hook up another 400 taps someday. The ones with the coal company, the town traded water it didn't have and got more water than it needs to supply those taps. It traded the ability to sell treated water to those taps to a coal company that now owns those taps and hundreds of acres of land around here. The coal business is on its ear. They're not Peabody coal, but I think the song, "You Can't Go Home Because Peabody Coal Has Hauled It Away," is relevant to the idea that they might give the taps back. That combining those taps with the land that they own is worth tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to this company when they quit mining coal. I believe one of the reasons that the language in the contract says the town has to be ready, has to maintain the ability to service those taps at all times, even though they're not online, is, maybe Corinne can help me out here, but I think it's because this is some mitigation water in case they poke a hole in the earth and some irrigation company's reservoir drains into it, that this is mitigation water. So we're supposed to have that now for them. That's what our contract calls for. Plus, there's another 100 taps that people have bought over the years and aren't drawing water out of. And so what the spirit of this thing is, wrote it, and it's draconian, and I am chagrined that it's more than 2 years into this now, and nobody's talking about how to fix it. We can't do anything until they finish their report. The report says the same thing as all the other reports have said. You've got to come up with some storage capability, or fix all of your leaks, or do something so that you've got some water to stored, so that when the springs aren't running, like in February, which is coming up, and the flow is dropping now, that you've got some water stored from a previous time when there was extra flow, so you can meet that demand. And it's way more water than you get out of a tank up on the hill. And somebody once suggested to me, oh, Paonia should just replace their water lines with 3-foot pipes, and that'll store all the water you need. That doesn't begin to cut it. Just do some simple math. So what the moratorium says is that it's the extension of the obligation not already incurred on the date of the passage of this ordinance. And the hope is that this would spur someone finally to start doing something about this. And perhaps Mr. Barrell here can help spur you on in that direction. I hope he can. I wish he could do this. What I see his proposal, when I look at it in terms of this moratorium, is he's talking about an additional dwelling unit. He's talking about putting another family in there. There's nothing to stop him from going to a commercial basis with this new thing. And I have to point out, he's in violation of the setback for the alley, which I believe is 10 feet. And I think there's something on here about a pre-approved variance for that. I don't believe it exists. The grandfather clause on rebuilding in the footprint of that garage says that if you tear it down and build something else, you have to honor the setbacks.
That's not what
Yes, we're way off.
No, it is
subject here.
relevant because we've got another situation where someone else is looking at turning apartments, turning the Hayes Drug into apartments, and I believe this is going through without a special review, and it shouldn't be happening. It's
All
a
right, but
violation
that's
of
not
this
what we're
moratorium.
discussing tonight. We are discussing Mr. Burrell's issue.
Okay, all right, I stand corrected. But yes, I'm sorry. I don't think it fits with the moratorium.
Okay.
And like, yeah.
All right, that's
Thank
what
you.
we needed. Thank you. Anything else from the board? Yes, Mr. Thompson.
My fear is the accessory dwelling unit precedent. I know you, Roger Wood. I know your water use.
It's very low.
I believe you 100%.
Very low.
My fear for our town is the accessory dwelling unit precedent. And I think we just need to be careful in how we make these precedents moving forward, because it's already starting. We're right there.
Other comments? Yes, Mr. Knudsen.
Is it helpful to make a motion? Okay. I'd
Make
like
a
to make a
motion, yes.
motion that we deny this request.
Okay.
And that the guidance from the board is that the this isn't the right wording, but the tight interpretation of the moratorium stand.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion from the board? Yes, Ms. Mayor.
Is it, what are we denying? Are we denying just the water, or are we denying like a building permit? What are we denying?
Building permit is tied to the water. You can't do the building permit without the water, so.
And
Yeah.
for
Well, I was
clarification,
told-
he doesn't have a building permit.
Okay. Okay.
I was told that it would be okay to have a bathroom and a sink.
Okay.
With this studio,
I think that, again, that's not what,
Right.
I think you're correct here, Tammy. We'd probably be looking for not an approval or denial. I mean, we're not reviewing a building permit. There's not a zoning application, anything like that. So probably what we'd be looking for is a motion to continue with the narrow interpretation of the moratorium?
Who seconded? Paige, could I amend? Okay. I'd like to
So are you saying that it's not possible under this moratorium to add a bathroom, a toilet
Correct.
and a shower and a sink
Correct.
to any home,
Yes.
period?
That hurts
no.
my wife and I too.
You can't extend a water line to
But
put
you
water
can,
in
but you
another
can
structure.
put 5 hoses on
Yeah,
a hydrant
agreed.
and run them
Agreed.
many lines.
It is
What
to
is
a
a
dwelling
line?
unit, Roger.
What?
It is to a dwelling unit.
Pardon me?
Yes,
I didn't understand.
we have to a dwelling unit. Mr. Knutson, would you make your
Uh,
motion, please?
I'll make a try at it. Actually, I'd like guidance from the town attorney about what the wording would be.
So we would be looking for a motion to continue with a narrow interpretation of 13.1.131, limiting the extension, considering the limitation of the extension of water delivery pipes.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we continue with the narrow interpretation of 13.131, limiting extension of water delivery pipes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion from the board? Yes, Mr. Thompson.
One question is, with it, it seems like there is a building code issue involved with this. Like, if you're building, this is a detached structure.
It's not an ADU.
But if you're building a structure that's not attached to the original structure, would building code require a new tap? Is my question.
I mean, I don't really want to go into all of the hypotheticals again, because we're not dealing with a building permit review. I mean, that's not within the trustees' purview at this point in time. And so I don't want to put something on the record. I mean, I think the trustees know I don't love providing legal advice in an open meeting. I really try not to do that. So I don't really want to start going down the hypotheticals respectively.
Well, maybe the question is an open question of, in this situation, it should go to building review. Like, if we were going to carry forward with your project, Roger, we would try to get a permit. You would apply for a permit, and it would go through the process. And if the permit said that you needed a water tap, then you wouldn't be able to do this under the moratorium. But I would interpret this like, if it was my house, or if you were building an addition to an existing structure, the tap goes to your house.
It does.
And so if it's attached,
And your whole property, not only that.
if it's attached and it meets all of our building codes, and the code doesn't require you to get an additional tap, then I would say you should probably be able to move forward with that.
Other comment from the board? Oh, unless you have more to say, Mr. Thompson?
No, this is a discussion.
Right. Okay. Other comments from the board? Okay, from the public?
I think there's
Yes,
something,
sir.
a water meter that determines how much
Okay.
each water tap uses.
Well,
It's-
we're
as opposed to
talking,
more
yes.
than one water tap.
Agreed. We get it. Yes, sir.
Yes, just a question. Now, does this moratorium only apply to people in town?
No.
So, and let me understand this. If you have a water tap, you're paying for shares of water, so many shares of water?
No.
No? I mean,
If
does
you
the
have if you have a water tap, you are paying a base fee, which is basically to cover infrastructure, and then a per gallon fee. For every gallon of water you use, up to within thousands, you pay.
But aren't there limits? Like my neighbor behind me,
No.
he has only so many gallons of water with his share that he can use.
And there's a difference between domestic water and ditch water. Ditch water comes via shares. domestic water that gets piped into your house comes with per gallon.
Oh, that's to tap.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Who else had a hand? Yes, Suzanne.
There's also the water ordinance that has to be looked at, and I don't have that one memorized. It's changed so many times. So it's kind of complicated because it's more than just building permit. It's also the water ordinance as well.
Okay. All right, anything else? Yes, Mr. King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, there's a lot of complexity going on with this water issue. So it's great that we're getting up to speed and more knowledgeable about it. I just want to polish my metal and say that in June of 2021, I used 44,000 gallons. September, October, 920 gallons.
Yes,
November,
you have told the board this before, Mr.
210 gallons. If we need to conserve,
we're not talking conservation. We're talking a specific issue here
I
on
just
the
wanted
water
to share
moratorium.
that. Thank you.
All right, anything else? All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the narrow interpretation of 13-1-131 on the extension of water lines. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I just, Madam Mayor, can I just make a comment? May I make a comment? It'll be brief.
All right.
Okay, I think this is a reminder of how much this moratorium is hamstringing our ability to pass an ADU ordinance. As Mr. Bruner has reminded us and proselytized and preached and lectured many, many times, we do need to focus on this water moratorium and start thinking outside of the box as far as ADUs. There has to be a way to allow things like this. As well, she's not here tonight, but another citizen said, you got to think outside of the box. You got to stop thinking that you just can't do this and start figuring out ways that you can.
All right, let's move on to Ordinance 02-2022, modification of municipal code board meeting dates. And this is basically, we're changing it from Tuesday to Thursday. Board discussion. Mr. Knudsen.
If we don't do it, we won't have a lawyer.
Correct. So would somebody like to make a motion? Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we modify the ordinance 02-22 to change our meeting dates from the first and second and fourth Tuesdays of the month to the second and fourth Thursdays of the month.
Do I have a second?
Second it.
Discussion from the board. Yes.
I reviewed this entire package, and I want to say that if we had, I would like, next meeting, I'm going to pass a motion to have strike and underline. It would have been much easier to see this, and you would have all noticed that, first of all, I think the 4 staff reports that used to be under item E on page 68.
That's the next
Oh,
item.
okay. Oh, it is?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I'm good on that one.
Okay.
It's the next one, sorry. Same
All
numbers,
right.
sorry. Never mind.
All right. Anything from the public? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that motion passes. Now we can go to the modified rules of procedure. Go Paige.
All right, so this modified rules of procedure was changed primarily to change our meeting times, but some things were taken out that we never talked about. Staff reports, they've removed, the administration, public works, police, and treasurer have been removed from schedule of business on page 68. And I don't remember us ever talking about that, so I would propose they be reinstated. On page 69, section 8, it still says state their name, the address of their residence. I would recommend we just say their street name only, which is what we've been doing. And lastly, The whole section on executive sessions is missing.
Oh.
So again, if we did a strike and underline for everything that got changed, you would have seen this. So that's another motion.
So what I would say on section 4, schedule of business, just like you've said on section 8, that because of board action where things have been changed previously, with the information that's provided at the podium, the resolution had never been changed. There had been board action that things like removing the committees and adding the ad hoc. There have been board action that changed the order, and the staff report section had been where staff members were here and were verbally, and in 2020 that was modified so that all of the department heads didn't have to necessarily be present at meetings, but could provide staff reports under staff reports, which is under administrator report. And so that's why those things were changed to model all the other changes that have been done by the board, but had never been changed in this resolution.
So the fact that it still has all 4 listed in our current agenda?
As far
You're proposing?
that's
Right,
no.
but you are now. And that's what I'm saying. I don't agree with it.
And it has been changed, and I used to list them out on it. It was changed in the past.
No, it's in the agenda packet right now. All 4 are listed on page 2 of this agenda packet. Staff reports, town administrator, public works, police report, treasury report.
And it's because of a link to the agenda summary form. So if the agenda summary form has not been corrected, or I utilize an agenda summary form that is, that's about the creation of the packet. When I create the packet and I attach an agenda summary form, any verbiage that I have in a box on that agenda summary form is carried over to the agenda. And that's why.
But no, this is the rules of procedure in the packet. I'm not,
Yeah.
it's on page,
That's
why, you can't just change the resolution.
That's what this resolution is.
I know, I understand that, and I'm saying I don't agree.
Okay, I'm just trying to clarify that all of these changes have been made since that 2017 resolution went. In 2017, the resolution was adopted by the board and was modified once in 2018. It has never been modified since, but the board has taken action to change the order and the other things in this, but the resolution had never been updated. So
Madam
since we
Mayor,
were
I'd like to
bringing,
move that we have an extension of the meeting for 15 minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor? All right. Yes, Mr. Thompson.
I did that last time. I'd like to make a motion to table this resolution and create a subgroup to have a conversation about how these procedures should be put together, not only to address Trustee Smith's issues, but also in an attempt to streamline the way that we run our meetings.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
And
Further discussion from the board? All right, discussion from the public. Yes, Ms. Watson.
I just wanted to mention with a strike and underline, there are no resolutions available before 2018, so I couldn't even find the original resolution that you're referring to. And I'm wondering if there's some way of getting the Muni code populated with resolutions that we still follow, but they're not available for viewing. If you go to 2017 and before, they're just not there.
All right, thank you, Suzanne.
Thanks.
All right. Yes, Ms. Bunger.
We could still go ahead and do this resolution, and we could still have an ad hoc committee to look at the way we structure the meeting. This was just putting in place the things that have
Right.
already been decided.
But I think the other thing, though, is if we're going to restructure, then let's just restructure.
Okay.
This is not, we can change the meeting before we go to Thursdays.
Okay.
So this is not time sensitive where the ordinance
All right,
was.
great.
Okay.
Let's let it
All
stand.
right. We have a motion and a second to table this and take it to an ad hoc committee of the board. All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Who would like to help Mr. Thompson? You only get one.
And if a member of the public wants to come forward and join us, I know I got a bad rap for trying to cut down public comment, so I welcome anyone that wants to join us. Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda are ad hoc committee reports. Do we have a tree board report, I think? Yes. Yay. Okay. No, you're the last thing on the aside from adjournment. You.
Mayor? Mayor? Mayor?
Yes.
While he's getting that, I did want to let the board know, I was remiss earlier, there's going to be a coffee with the commish February 2nd at 7:30 a.m. here in Town Hall. Coffee with the commish. Commissioner Wendell Kuntz, our district rep, will be here Wednesday, February 2nd at 7:30 a.m. For coffee here in Town Hall. They're bringing the coffee. They can use the Keurig if they would like to. It is available. I will happily donate the coffee that we buy to the commissioner and anybody else that comes.
Okay.
It is there.
Are you ready, Mr. Thompson?
I am, thank you.
Go for it.
Thank you, Corinne. Yes, the tree board is, has completed changes to the website and is requesting feedback. We are moving to finalize a new preferred tree list for plantings in greenways. And that is in consultation with other towns and the State Forest Service. We're also in process of adopting a logo for the board to help with promotion, and we are planning an Arbor Day tree planting and plan to continue Sick Tree Day. That's the general overview from
Okay.
the tree
Do you have a
board.
date for your Arbor Day celebration yet?
Thank you. Arbor Day is Friday, April 29th.
All right, questions for Mr. Thompson from the board? Okay, question from the public? All right, thank you very much. You completed your very first tree board assignment. Congratulations. All right, we are at the end of our agenda, and so I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, please, turn in your thingies. You know, it's really helpful for me when you write this stuff down. Yeah.